Live from a grungy kitchen table located in Annapolis, Maryland's scenic and historic capital, it's the Maryland Crabs Podcast. With each episode, your hosts, Tim Hamilton, John Frenay, and the occasional guest will dive in and pick apart the stuff that really matters most to you. We're too lazy to actually solve any of these problems, but we can definitely stir the pot. From schools, politics, parking in the fire lane, to those horrible people who drive BMWs. And here with this week's episode, live from the kitchen table, Tim Hamilton and John Frenay.
It's a special edition of the Maryland Crabs because every edition is special.
It's a long one.
It is very long. It was the debate was last Sunday, so we're recording this afterwards. Right. We often do. We're cheaterheads. That way, we listen to it, we can edit it, and then we can comment on it. Because when it's going, it's you miss a bunch of things. And it was a long debate. It was almost 2 hours.
Right. And for those of you that stayed home to watch the Ravens instead of the debate,
it was good.
You guys lost.
We also live streamed it on All Annapolis Facebook page. So if you want to go look at that, that was really interesting because then you can see the facial expressions and the nuances and all those sort of things.
Right. You can go to, actually, you'll be able to go to the marylandcrabs.com and see, we'll put the video on there as well with this episode.
Right. So, and thanks again to Ram's Head and Seth and everyone who ran our audio there, and everyone, they're just phenomenal there. They do a great job, and they welcome us, and they bend over backwards to accommodate us. So thank you to Ram's Head.
They really are. And I don't want to diss on Maryland Hall, but I got a lot of people asking me, why don't you do it at Maryland Hall? And I'm like, well, first of all, I don't know that we could fill an 800-seat auditorium.
Not with that attitude.
I get that. But again, I think it adds something that we can sit there and maybe have some lunch or dinner.
And booze, let's be honest.
And some booze, yeah. You're sitting down, and Rams has a great venue because, again, you had mentioned briefly to see the facial expressions and whatnot. I mean, what are you seeing from 20 rows out? And Rams had such a tight venue. I mean, you're very close to the stage. And
that's a great venue in general. I don't go, as everyone knows, I don't go out that often. But I mean, I've seen a bunch of shows there. I saw, Robert Cray there a couple times. And you and I went and saw
Hannibal
Buress, which was awesome. That was right before
Bill Cosby. I'm not forgetting about it.
That's before the whole Bill Cosby thing blew up. But I mean, that's just a great venue to see anything. And it's just so convenient. It's downtown. I love that place.
It is. So we had a real good turnout. We had quite a few no shows, and I'll throw that. I think we were competing with Ravens and the Skins. It was a Sunday, so we had church and the boat show and fear of parking and whatnot, which wasn't really an issue. But we had about 225 people.
Yeah, I did. I looked. We had about 6 tables in the way back towards the street that were not filled.
That were totally empty.
So that's 30 some people. So
yeah.
But then we had people who showed up who didn't have tickets. So.
And then there were some people that were just standing. So I mean, it was a good crowd. It wasn't a sparse crowd by any means.
It was rowdy.
Yes, it was.
It was a rowdy crowd. It was a Sunday afternoon. We did it at noon on Sunday.
Yep. Who won?
Redskins did.
Who won the debate?
You know what? Here's the thing, and I'm going to be completely and totally honest. And I said this because we spoke to the candidates afterwards, and I think they're anxious to know how they do and how it's perceived. But I mean, we're also a little closer than most people in that we prepared for it, and by we I mean you. And
I mean, we just to give people a little bit of a background on preparing for this. I mean, it was a bit of a nightmare because we had to find a date that was available at the Rams Head, and they're constantly booking acts into the place.
And John was doing this, by the way, before the primary, so he had to clear it with all 4 candidates.
We had flyers made up for Astle and Pantelides and Astle and Young and all the different combinations. And so when the primary came out, and we had to clear the dates with all of the candidates, even the losing ones in the primary. And this was really the only one. I mean, we could have gone like November, I think 6th or 5th or whatever it was, but that was just too close to the election, I felt. We could have done Halloween weekend, but there was something going on there. And this just seemed to work out. There was a couple of evenings, which I would have preferred. But the ones that were available, the mayor was not available because of council meetings and council commitments. So
that said, the way we did it is we took questions from the audience, we took questions from you guys, and thanks for everyone who sent in the questions that we used. So we took the questions. So we introduced Dr. Dan Nataff, who was our moderator.
Phenomenal.
He's pro. So we did the intro, we did the funny bits, and then we let him take over. And then we went back into the green room, and we had all the cards that people were filling out. And there was, a few dozen of them. And I had a big board, and I had all the cards on the board, and I was sorting them because some were for Gavin and some were for Mike, and then there was some overlap. So as it took me a while to sort them, and then they were coming in because people at the table were filling them out, and John was bringing them back. So I didn't see much of the debate, but I was right off stage, so I could hear it. So when I heard that someone would answer a question that was on the card there, I would take the card out of play, just because we didn't want to repeat the question. So here's the phenomenon that I said, and I said it's kind of like that Kennedy-Nixon debate back in like 62, whatever it was, or 60. In listening to it, it sounded like Gavin had an edge on Mike. Just listening to it. So I wasn't able to see the expression. I wanted to able to see how they were handling themselves. But after the debate, I talked to quite a few people who were nonpartisan, by the way. So I'm not talking about Gavin's people who were there and Mike's people were there. But they thought that Mike had a slight edge. So it was one of the things that me listening to it thought that Gavin had a little bit of an edge, especially in a few questions. And then other people thought the opposite.
I didn't think there was a clear-cut winner.
No, and that's easy for us to couch that because we're trying to play the middle. We're not trying to play the middle because we're not getting paid.
Well, there wasn't. I mean,
our jobs don't depend on this.
There were some surprise questions. I think both candidates were surprised at some of the questions. And the moderated questions that Dan Nataf had worked with, this came out of a 2-hour meeting that we had with Dr. Nataf.
Yeah, and then offline, you and I worked on those for several hours after that, too.
And going back and forth. So how they came about is we sat down with Dr. Nataf and we discussed which issues we felt were important to discuss and sort of honed out an outline for over.
Because there's not that many topics. I mean, they all come down to crime, jobs.
Crime, HACA, business and finances. But, we worked with Dr. Nataf. We came out, then we honed out these questions and emails going back and forth to finally come out with, about a dozen questions that 7 were ultimately, I believe.
None of which should have been surprises.
No, but the way they went, there were a couple surprises. I think the mayor was caught off guard a little bit, and he did well. Mm-hmm. And then certainly
he debates well.
Yeah, and they had the option to, unlike the forum that we had in June, they had the option to rebut. So when Gavin says we should do this, Mike says, well, how would you do that? Or how could you do that? Right. And so it was really very interesting. I did really appreciate the cards. I mean, I'm looking at all the cards. We probably got about 200 different questions. Yeah. And obviously we couldn't answer them all, but it was...
You can tell the ones that were coming from the campaigns and the supporters. Because they were all kind of similarly written. And we were fair. We asked the question. We didn't ask it multiple times. But I will say this too. It was interesting to me watching the debate because there's so many debates. People there's the League of Women Voters. There's the environmental one that's coming up. But they do a ton of these events with each other. So they're adversaries, but they're around each other probably more than they are their significant others at this point.
Right.
So what's funny is that I've gone to a few of these debates and I've listened to some of the debates, and they almost have a rhythm with each other right now. Is that when a certain question is asked, let's say that Gavin will answer it the way using a phrase I've heard a bunch of times. Because I mean, how many different ways can you answer a question? And then Mike will dovetail off that. It's almost like they have a script. They're like dancing with each other at this point because they do so much of this.
We did see them having lunch at Lemongrass that one day when we were heading up to the Commons.
Oh yeah, maybe this is all performance art.
Maybe they do have a script. I don't know.
But it's because in all fairness, there's only a certain number of ways you can answer the same questions over and over and over, and you kind of do fall into that.
Part of that too
pattern.
is also to see if you can catch them. Have you answered it a different way?
Right.
Has your position changed?
Well, and there was evidence of that because I think that there was 2 issues that I can think of with Gavin, and one is I think he kind of backed off the sanctuary city topic a little bit, where I think he was kind of softening his stance on, or hardening his stance, maybe you would say, where he's like he wasn't fully in support of sanctuary city. And the other one was the Ferris wheel. There was that debate. Was he joking? Was he kidding about that?
Let's talk about the Ferris wheel for a little bit, okay? We had a podcast earlier in the year in March.
Yeah.
And we were just talking about Gavin and what his vision for the future was. So I threw out there, I said, okay, you've got $500 million of a budget, which is 5 times what the city has for a budget. How would you spend it? What would you do? And we were just sort of going back and forth. And I said, or I think we were both sort of laughing. I said, oh, what about like Ferris wheels on City Dock or something like that? And his face changed. And then we came back from a break, and he said that he did have this idea of putting this Ferris wheel on City Dock. Now, part of his joke was calling it the Eye on Annapolis, which is a pun on the London Eye as well as Eye on Annapolis, which I do. But
I didn't get that till right now. Everyone's been saying that, and I laughed, but I didn't get that till you explained that to me.
Yeah, full of shit.
I'm totally serious. I had no idea. Because we're calling the Eye on Annapolis. I thought it was just because you're up in the air and you could see Annapolis.
Yeah, no, and that I think was the joke part. But I think coming out of that podcast, I think he was dead serious because when we followed up,
but he was, but that's because he called us for that one, and I think that's part of his quirkiness. That's part of his thing is that he's a guy of big ideas, and some will stick, some won't. But
right. He came through and he said that we have the ability to we can rent it for a year and see how it works and lease out the concession give the concessions to somebody to run it,
right,
and whatnot. So he had thought about something like that, and it could work. I mean, who's to say that it couldn't? But I also think that he didn't explain his splash park very well. I think some people thought there was water slides and wave pools and all sorts of things like that. And what he means by a splash park is a flat surface with water pipes underground that you don't see. And the water sort of goes up in a
pattern,
in a timed pattern. And you can turn it totally off, and it's a flat sidewalk with little tiny holes in it. But then when Mike Pantelides sent out the mailer saying Gavin wants to put a Ferris wheel at City Dock.
Yeah, so Mike, the Pantelides campaign sent out a postcard last week with an accompanying website URL about the Ferris, which
Gavin's Ferriswheel.com,
which is actually kind of funny. That it was the spot was funny that they put together. But so that became a campaign issue. It was going, well, wait a minute, that's kind of a crazy, wacky idea, and he was trying to pin Gavin down during the debate. And Gavin kind of scooted away from it a little bit, which I thought you should probably own that.
Yeah, I mean, there were several things because, a lot of people were saying on Facebook, it was just totally a joke. I can't believe the mayor didn't realize it was a joke.
I didn't take it as a joke.
I didn't take it as a joke either.
And I don't think it's. We talked about that afterward, saying that he's running on that entrepreneurial, let's grab as many creative ideas as we can and see what works and what doesn't. And then talking the questions, I think, to be fair, I think Mike kind of stumbled a little bit on the last question he had, which was, kind of grading his performance, the promises made, promises kept. I think, and I was listening from the back, and that's where I felt that that's the only time. He's a very good debater. And he seemed to that one kind of took him by surprise a little bit, I think, or at least it took him a minute to hit his stride when answering it.
I think so. I thought Gavin had a funny line there. He said, what's the best thing mayor's done over the last 4 years? And he says,
snowplow.
Mike, he did a hell of a job with snow removal last year. Everybody sort of laughed there.
Yeah, but they're friendly. I mean, there's been no hostility, no real bad zingers. I mean, I think if it was John Astle and Mike, this would be
a little bit dirtier,
brutal. The debates would be a lot rougher. They'd be a lot more brutal.
I agree, and I'll probably put that to the naivety and the relative youngness of the mayor and Gavin as far as politics.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I kind of like it better this way. I could do without the jugular. I mean, maybe I'm an idealist, but at least this is very civil. And I think
it does. It gets. I mean, when you get into the jugular, then at that point, then you're just you're really going after the person as opposed to the issues.
Yeah, and they're both. I mean, they're both good guys. They're both. I think they both worked very hard for this, and I think they're going to be relieved when it's over. I'm going to be relieved when it's over, and I think everyone who listens to our podcasts who don't live in Annapolis are going to be relieved when this is all over. We keep again. We're getting flooded with emails going, when are you going to get back to Maryland? We are. We promise. We promise.
Yeah, we're going to be talking with Baltimore County Executive and Gubernatorial candidate Kevin Kamenetz.
That's Baltimore. That's not Annapolis, whiners.
Yeah. And hey, speaking in Baltimore City, we're going to be talking to Commissioner Kevin Davis. Got a couple other things.
I got a podcast that I have to edit, Crab Cake rather I have to edit, which is Judge Mark Crooks.
We need more crooks for judges.
Yeah, he's funny. He's a good guy too. I think we talked for longer off mic than we did on. It was really funny.
Those are always the best conversations. And I just had lunch today, or breakfast, I guess, today with Tony Pratt, who was defeated in the primary in Ward 4 when she ran against Sheila Finlayson by 17 votes, and she's in it.
As a write-in.
She's going to be a write-in candidate.
That's going to be a fun ward to watch. I mean, 1 and 8 are going to be fun, but that's going to be a particularly...
Yeah. She's not officially filing, if you will, as a write-in candidate, but she will totally accept the results of an election if the people want to.
Which is the point of a write-in, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've got to look at the city code and figure out what it is, and she seemed to think if you filed as an official write-in, meaning... And I think the only way you could file as an official write-in is if you had lost a primary. So I think what she does is then you're actually listed on the ballot, provided that you've done it in time for the ballot to be printed. And you're not listed as a party. You're listed as a write-in.
Then why not do that and if that's the way it works, then why not do that? Why go through the primary?
There may be some financial things with the financial reporting. I don't know.
It would just be easier because then you don't have to waste your money on a primary, and you can...
I'd have to look at it. And just judging from what people have had to do to get on the ballot as independents, I know that people misspell names, and they say, oh, yeah, no, we can't.
That is the one thing that both parties can agree on is...
Stephen Kahn, when he ran as an independent, if somebody...
I didn't know he did.
Yeah, when somebody would wrote, yeah, I talk good. When somebody would write Stephen, Stephen, Conn, Conn, they would disqualify that signature because his name was Stephen with a V.
And that's what I was saying, is that's what both parties can agree on, is that they want to make third-party candidates as difficult as possible.
Yeah.
On a national, I think Ross Perot taught that to them.
So that'll be very interesting there. And that one, on my predictions, I had picked Sheila to win, as she did by a very slim margin. But now with Tony doing a write-in, that may be a prediction that falls. Scott McMullen called me the other day. He says, so are your predictions still the same? Have you changed? I said, no. I said, I'm still sticking with them, and I won't change them.
Well, it's an interesting thing, because so if you're Sheila, then you have not been really, and I'm just guessing, I might be wrong. So she wasn't necessarily in fundraising mode, because she knew that she was going to win, and she wasn't going to have a opponent.
She had some money and she was in fundraising.
Yeah, but if you're going to the general,
I don't think she turned around. Right.
That's what I'm saying. If you're going to the general and all of a sudden you have a candidate that you didn't anticipate and you didn't have money allocated for that, you got to do some quick work. Now, there's enough time for her too. I mean, one in this town, one fundraiser can put you back on where you need to be.
Track, right. Well, look at Gavin. I mean, you look at the campaign finance reports that just came out. Gavin, when he came in to talk to us on primary night, said in his intimidable Aussie accent, he says, God damn, I went and still had no money.
Yeah.
So I had to,
That's the worst Australian accent ever.
So he turned around, he loaned himself $3,000 that day to have some more signs printed up. So Gavin now is actually almost toe-to-toe with Mike for money raised since the week before the primary. Mike has 47 or 49,000, and Gavin, I think, has 37.
And it's been kind of low-key. I think they're both waiting till they get closer to the election, but the Facebook, usually, I mean, this is the first election that Facebook's been flooded, and we were flooded. I haven't seen, except for signs, I haven't seen a whole lot in and about town on Facebook or anything. So it'll be interesting to see what happens when they get closer.
Well, I think this election really sort of mirrors the one between Martin O'Malley and Governor Ehrlich. When Ehrlich challenged O'Malley's second term, and Ehrlich wanted his second term.
Right.
And what happened is O'Malley turned around and dumped, I can't remember how many millions of dollars, the last 2 weeks before the election in media. And it was signs, it was radio, it was TV, it was internet, it was everywhere you saw there was the O'Malley ads, and it just absolutely flooded the market with Martin O'Malley. And up to that point, most people suggested that the race was fairly close and fairly even, and they were keeping up with each other, could have gone either way, but that just totally weighed it. And Ehrlich has come out on the record and said, I think he actually said that to on the Minor Detail, that the podcast with Ryan Minor, said that, we just totally could not raise that amount of money in that short a time to keep up, and that's what cost us the election. Now, he could just be squawking about that and bitter apples, but that's...
or sour grapes, either one.
Yeah, I mean, leave me alone on my analogies. So it's it'll be interesting to see what happens on this thing. I think
generally when it comes to elections, I mean, you look at Trump won with spending a fraction of the money that Hillary did. Now he got a lot of free airtime, of course. You can blame the mainstream media for the way they cover him now, but they also created him. But in the same way, you look at the way this election has been, and a lot of the money's gone to Facebook. And I would argue that has made a huge difference. And Facebook, dollar for dollar, is a lot less expensive than any other medium, whether it it's radio or TV or newspaper or what have you. And you could argue its effectiveness, and I would argue that it's extremely effective. But I think your Facebook dollar goes a lot farther than it does. But not to say you don't need the other media. You absolutely do.
For a television buy.
Because especially if you want younger voters and older voters, you're not going to find them on Facebook. That's all like Generation X and younger baby boomers. So when we talk about money moving forward for elections, and I wonder sometimes if these campaign managers, these old school campaign managers, are keeping up with the new media. That there are new and better ways to reach voters. And they would lecture me going, I've worked on this many campaigns. And as a marketing guy, I would say the demographics and the targeting and everything else there's been a sea change in the last 3 year. There's a huge change between right now and the last mayoral election. It's night and day.
I'm waiting for the time when geofencing comes into it, and that you're walking by a poll and you'll get a text on your phone saying, hey, you haven't voted today. Well,
and that's the argument right now where you're looking at, I'm talking about the national election, where you're saying that the Mueller investigation is saying that the Russians spent only a few $100,000 on Facebook advertising, and the people who think that the Russians didn't have a big impact on our election are kind of scoffing, going, oh yeah, they turned an election of 350 million people with just a few. It can be done. If you use specific targeted demographic information and you target key voting areas and districts, which is what they did, it absolutely makes a difference. difference. I'm not arguing either way. I'm just talking about the effectiveness of new media. So you're looking at a mayoral election. Can you raise less money and have more of a reach? Yeah, you can now. None of them delved into advertising on Instagram, as far as I know, but that's the next step. You know, there's a lot of ways to do this that don't involve signs and newspaper ads. But
True. Well, I'll tell you what, why don't we let the people listening listen to the debate? And what I thought might be kind of fun when we come back, we'll look at some of the questions that weren't asked from the audience that we didn't have time to get to.
Oh, good idea.
So why don't we throw it into a commercial, listen to the debate, and we'll catch you when the candidates reveal who is their top played song on their iPhones.
All right, see you in a couple hours. Hey folks, this is Tim Hamilton, your favorite co-host of the Maryland Crabs podcast. Besides being hilarious and charming on this podcast every week, I'm also a marketing professional with clients all over the region. I buy advertising and media for my clients, including TV, cable, newspaper, magazine, Facebook, blah, blah, blah. And this may surprise you, but I still buy direct mail. I know it sounds very 1978, but to be completely honest, if you have a compelling message to convey, and you do it in a creative way, direct mail is dollar for dollar one of the best advertising channels out there, especially for small businesses who don't have much in the way of a marketing or advertising budget. And if I decide to use direct mail for a project, I call Post Haste Mailing in Annapolis. I've worked with Jack Ellis, the owner of Post Haste, for almost 15 years now on countless projects, and he is, in all honesty, my number one most trusted vendor. In fact, whenever I find myself in a crisis, a sales slump, an event that looked like it was going to fall on its face, a new product launch that was pushed up a few weeks, my very first phone call is always to Jack. He always gives me the answer I need. Maybe not the answer that I want, but one that gets me out of that particular jam. I'm not kidding. He has saved my job on more than one occasion. Seriously. So what does Post Haste Mailing do? Well, they do mailings, duh. That's in the name after all. But it's Jack's decades of experience that gives you the best bang for your marketing buck. Do you want to micro-target certain customers or neighborhoods or businesses? Jack can pull a list for you that makes sure that your mailing gets into the hands of your target demographic without the advertising waste that you get with other media. That means that if you have a small budget, you can still get the results you need. And if you need printing done, Post Haste Mailing can do that too. Postcards of any size, pamphlets, variable data printing, cut sheet laser printing, and a bunch of other printing terms that I don't understand. But Jack understands them, and he knows what's best for my business and how I can get the best bang for my buck. So if you're a business owner and you've never considered direct mail, give Jack at Post Haste Mailing a call to see what he can do for you. I promise you that you will be surprised at the options you didn't know were available to your business. Who knows? Maybe someday Jack can save your job too. Hello? Thank you all for coming to the... Oh, what's that? We're waving? Thank you all for coming to the Maryland Crabs podcast and Annapolis debate, mayoral debate. This is great. We see some of the same faces here. You guys are awesome coming out on a Sunday. We really appreciate that. And we appreciate you reading all our stuff on John's website, Annapolis, and listening to our podcast and coming to the events and sending us emails, even the nasty ones. Thank you. We love those. Those are great. And we know that we've put a lot of time into this debate, but it's important because for our city, this is a big deal, and we really appreciate everything that everyone's done. And we want to thank, once again, Ram's Head and the great staff, and Seth who's doing the audio, and everyone. They're just so generous. So let's have a round of applause for Ram's Head. All right, so look at the menu. There's some great stuff on the menu, and we know a lot of you personally, so we know that a lot of you are not above day drinking, so feel free. We're not going to judge you. And be kind to the servers. It's great here on a Sunday. And thanks for foregoing church for this, folks. We really do appreciate that. So when the tab comes, remember them, because they all work hard.
Sure. All right, it's been a long, long election cycle. See, we just got out of the one last year, and we're getting ready to go into another one. But we have dedicated more than 24 episodes on the Maryland Crabs podcast to the Annapolis City election, to both the mayoral and the aldermanic elections, and it's now drawing to a close. And as we approach the general election on November 7th, our mission has always been to keep voters as informed as possible about all the candidates, with staying as even-handed as possible. We said in one of our recent episodes that we really genuinely were impressed by everybody that had thrown their hat into the ring. And they really have. And it's a special person that puts everything they've got on hold to go into campaign. And I think we can all appreciate somebody who wants to dedicate their time to public service, which is a thankless task, which I'm sure And we have invited everybody who has run here up to date so far, and I would like to ask them to stand, and if they're here, please stand up. Nevin Young, Senator John Astle, Alderman Joe Budge, Ellie Tierney,
Larry Clausen, Alderman Fred Paone, Kurt Riegel, Alderwoman Rhonda Pindell-Charles, Alderwoman Sheila Finlayson, Tony Strong-Pratt, James Appel, Mark Rodriguez, DeJuan Gay, Shanika Henson, David Frankel, Rob Savage, Alexis Villegas, Alderman Ross Arnett, Bumper Moyer, and Julie Mussog. Thank you guys all very much for what you've done. All right, now I'm going to give it back to Tim because he's got a tie.
I promised I wouldn't wear it, so I wore it to make him look like a slob. All right, so listen carefully. So this is going to be your last chance to get an unvarnished and unfiltered view of the candidates. I know there's been a lot in the election cycle in the paper. John did the aldermanic debates, which took forever. So having another hand for me. So that said, let's give them some respect today. Let's no reactions or boos or hisses. All right, sweetie? Okay, just behave. Is that a mimosa? Who's got this table? Okay, so right now we'd like to welcome the gentlemen of the hour who are going to come up and give their unfiltered answers to the questions that we have put together and also that you have all put together as well. So we would like to welcome the gentlemen of the hour. Please welcome candidates Mayor Michael Pantelides and local businessman Gavin Buckley. Okay, so this is probably the most important debate during the whole thing, and there's been a lot of debates, a lot of great organizations that put them on. So anyone could screw this up, so we decided we're not going to handle this one. So we brought in a ringer. So our moderator this afternoon is director of the Center for Study of Local Issues at Anne Arundel Community College. Dr. Nataf is responsible for the semi-annual survey of local and statewide issues that have been produced by the college since 1978. And Dr. Nataf was with us on primary night. He was a great break from us yammering on because he brought an air of gravitas to it, which was fantastic. And as a bonus, he's a Ward 8 resident. So please give it up for Dr. Dan Nataf. Thank you, Doc.
Well, thanks for that generous introduction. In case any of you are wondering when my next survey is coming out, next week. So keep attentive for that, and you can find out all the good news as to who's up, who's down, what issues are salient, which aren't. All right, today we'll be using the following format. We have about 2 hours for this debate. The first, yes, 2 hours. Are you guys ready for that? The first part will be asking questions that we have prepared. John and Tim have already said that we spent many hours going over really hard questions. Each candidate will have 3 minutes to address the question with a 1-minute follow-up by each afterwards. And if they become vague, I'll try to hold their feet to the fire for another minute or so. The second part will include questions prepared by the audience. Since we, let me get a little water here. Oh wait, I have a huge pitcher. Do they think I drink pitchers? I need a glass of water, please, John. I thank you. He'll do anything for a vote, right? All right. Where were we? Okay, the second part will include questions prepared by you, the audience. We anticipate that there'll be more questions than we can possibly go over, so that candidates will draw from a pool of questions, and they'll have a couple minutes to address each one. Each candidate will start with an opening statement, and then we'll close with a closing statement at the end. They'll have 3 minutes in each case. We did a coin flip. And the way it worked out, to the mutual agreement of the candidates, Gavin will go first in both cases, and Mike will go last in both cases. So we start then with you, Gavin Buckley.
Hi there, how you doing? All right. I'm just going to say I'm very nervous straight out of the gate, so this is new for me. I want to thank Mike for making me a better person. This is something that I've never really done before, but I've learned so much through this process. So thank you, Mike. I want to thank you guys for coming out here, because without you, there is nothing. So I want a chance to work for you, to work for the citizens of this town. But I'm not running against Mike, and I wasn't running against John. I'm running for some new ideas, and I'm running for change. And I believe that what I see happening is I see our city selling off assets. We sold off the old rec centre. I feared we might sell off the market house. We sold off the golf course. And we're privatising things. And I believe that we're heading in a direction where we won't have a city left anymore. And so my kids go to school in this town. My kids go to Green Street and Annapolis Middle. And I think we deserve better for those kids. So I want the kids to see a town that we are all proud of. So I'm here asking for your vote. I want to thank these guys for putting this event on. I think it's amazing that citizens are this engaged and they want to come out. And I promise you I will be a good advocate for you. Thank you.
Mike.
It's been an honor serving as your mayor for the last 4 years. Being mayor of your hometown is a dream come true. With the time we have tonight, I want to share with you why I ran for office, what I've done as mayor, and more importantly, my vision for the future. I love this city. I'm a third generation Annapolitan, was born and raised here. I ran for mayor 4 years ago because I saw the city heading in the wrong direction, and I knew that I had the leadership skills to move us forward. When I first got elected, I wanted to focus on local issues, like improving our fire department. One of the first things I did was met with the fire chief, and he told me we want to be a Class 1 fire department. In the state of Maryland, there's only 2 fire departments out of 157 that have this distinction, and Annapolis is one of them. That means everyone in the audience is eligible for reduction in their fire insurance rates. One of the main issues that got me elected was the budget. You know, before I was here, we had 2 rounds of massive tax increases. Water bills got doubled, trash got cut back to once a week, and the city was still so broke we had to borrow money to meet payroll. I'm proud to stand here today, say working in a bipartisan fashion with the council. We've passed 4 budgets without raising the tax rate. We've lowered the trash bills by 46%, and we don't have to do short-term borrowing anymore. Another issue was development. Development was running unchecked. Schools were overcrowded. So we worked together with the council, and we passed an Adequate Public Facilities Act. What that means is if a school is overcrowded, you can hold up a development for 6 years. It's an important step. Both my parents started out as teachers. My mom taught Spanish. My dad taught history at Annapolis High School. And I'm proud to say that what we're going to do in the future is even better. We have a huge emphasis on stopping crime and fixing the heroin epidemic. We've added 10 new police officers in the last budget. We put more money for overtime. We installed security cameras, which, by the way, have solved some of the crimes we have. We have to give our officers the best state-of-the-art technology. That's why we introduced the body camera program. We switched to a community policing models, getting officers out of the car and building trust in there. And the last issue I want to talk about, which may be one of the most important, is the environment. You know, I'm proud to have the endorsement of the nonpartisan League of Conservation Voters. They did that because of my record, putting $1 million in the capital fund for stormwater management, stopping the original massive Crystal Spring plan, and building an Annapolis Renewable Energy Park. I'm excited for this debate today, and I look forward to sharing with you my plans and vision for the future. Thank you.
All right, the first subject we're going to tackle is transportation. What are the key traffic, parking, and transit challenges confronting both the downtown area as well as other areas such as Forest Drive and Outer West Street? What are your specific priorities should you be elected in November? We start with Gavin.
Can I really stand? This is taped down.
Yeah. You want to come up here? I mean, you'd have to alternate, but
Let's go. We have a lot of parking in this town. It's just not on the water. So what we have to do is we have to condition people to get out of their cars at the top of Main Street, not at the bottom of Main Street. That's one of the issues. People come here, try to park on the water. When they don't get a parking space, they circle round, they cause gridlock, they block up the Eastport Bridge, they block up Gate 1, and then they burn more fossil fuel, And then we're gridlocked, and we get a reputation as a town that has a traffic problem. I have initiatives to get people out of their cars at the top of Main Street. We have 3 empty garages that sit empty 7 nights a week and all weekend long. The Gotts garage, the Whitmore garage, and both of those garages are not in the current parking plan, and one of those garages is free. We need to utilize those assets. I have a plan to get people out of their cars and into trolleys that are free and that are funded by federal transit funds and that are run as a business, and they get people out of their cars and they get people to different destinations in the city. They get people to Gate 3 of the Naval Academy. They get people to Maryland Ave, an area that needs traffic, that needs people going to it. They get people to St. John's, a college that not enough people see when they come to this city. It's a jewel. Everybody should see it when they come to Annapolis. And then this trolley is going to stop at Main Street, and it's going to go up and down Main Street. And I have to work with the business community on how we're going to implement this, but it's a fun trolley. It's part of the experience. And so that's called the Crosstown Flyer. We have another trolley called the East-West Flyer. That trolley will get people from the stadium to Main Street, to the bottom of Main Street, and to the bottom of the Eastport Bridge. And what we need to be doing is getting people out of their cars. We keep talking about traffic, but we're not trying to get people out of their cars as soon as possible. So that's just one small idea I have. That's
How about outside downtown?
So we need for mobility. I talk about bike path connectivity. So I think if you look at cities like, if you look at countries like Denmark, 50% of the population get to work on their bikes. No one will get on a bike in this town because we're afraid to lose our lives. So, but if we put money into that infrastructure, if we used open space funds to build solid bike network around the city, that would create mobility. That would create assets for the city. If you do good bike paths in your city, there is an asset for the city, and they're a great thing that you can sell houses on. So we need to do bike paths because bike paths mobilize people. We need to connect the Poplar Trail all the way to the mall. That's a way to get to a job. We need to be thinking about things like this because in 10 years, we shouldn't be thinking about building parking garages because we should be thinking about what's this city going to be like in 10 years. And hopefully, for our kids' sake, we are driving less cars.
Okay.
So I'm going to take a broad approach talking about transportation in this city. We've talked a lot about the downtown area, and I'll address that in a second. But I want to talk about the other area of transportation, and that's our bus routes, which a lot of people depend on. If I look in this room, I would assume most people came here in a car. That's not a choice for a lot of people in Annapolis. You know, when I first took office, one of the things I saw, we have to do better for our transportation system. I saw that our buses weren't working because there weren't bus shelters, and it broke my heart to see people standing in the rain. So when I came in, the bus shelters were taken down for 2.5 years. I went in there and said, we're going to replace all the bus shelters, and I want it done in 30 days. I got it done in 9 months, which is actually light speed when you're working in government. But everybody got done. Then I reached out to the county executive, and I said, 42% of our bus routes aren't in the city of Annapolis. They're in Anne Arundel County, and we can't afford to keep running them. Could you help us? He said, absolutely. So we increased our funding to $250,000, $500,000, to $750,000. Then I saw that we're not getting enough people to Annapolis. So we worked with the state of Maryland. And for the first time, there's a state bus that runs from the Eastern Shore to Annapolis to Baltimore. And they brought back the old run that runs from Annapolis to Baltimore, connecting people with jobs. When it comes to the downtown area, we need more technology. I used to work for a software company, and I realized we have to update things. Over the last 4 years, you're now able to pay with parking with your cell phone. If you don't want to stand outside and wait for the circulator, there's an app, which I encourage everyone to download. You can find where it is in real time. We put electronic fare boxes in our bus system, so we have to do more to go. I agree. I've never stood up here and said we're always going to have parking downtown. The plan to get parking off of downtown is when we rebuild the Hillman garage to build it a level higher and a level lower. If we can do that, we can get rid of all the cars down there. But we can't do it until then. If we just get rid of all the parking downtown, if we rip up a lane of Main Street to put a trolley and take away 150 parking spaces, it's going to kill all the businesses. We can't afford to do that. So the plan over the next 4 years is working together, finding more funds to make our transportation system even better, and connecting everyone. Thank you.
Let's keep it light on the applause. I mean, we want to hear more questions from all of you as well as us. So, all right, next topic, city finances. Over the last 11 years, the city's debt has increased from 70 to 160 million. Since 2012, debt service has doubled to 10 million annually. What do you feel is an acceptable level of debt? And how do you keep that at an acceptable level and still address the large and pressing capital projects such as the Hillman Garage or downtown flood mitigation? Not only that, but what would you do to address the estimated $30 million shortage in the pension fund for our city employees? So this time we start with Mike.
Sure. I'm glad we're discussing this issue tonight. I feel it's one of my strongest suits. As I mentioned in my opening dialogue, it's one of the reasons I got elected. How do we solve this pension problem? I can tell you that over the last 4 years, the city has doubled its contributions to the retirement pension fund, and the employees have paid more. We realize you're not going to get a 7.5%, 8%, 10% return on investments. So you've seen that we're committed. The city stepped up to the plate. The employees have stepped up to the plate. We're going to continue to do that. In terms of debt service, there's a lot of misinformation that goes on about that issue. We have to do things in the city that weren't done. Take the bulkhead downtown at City Dock. If you looked at it on a low tide day, you could literally see metal rebar and no concrete. That shouldn't have happened under my administration. It should have happened a decade ago. But we did it on schedule and $1 million under budget. A water treatment plant was built in 1929. The Capitol reported part of it was held together with duct tape. That's a $40 million project. Somebody had to do it. It happened under my administration. Main Street's getting redone next year. Should have happened years ago, but we're the ones who are doing it. So when people talk about debt service, it's not racking up debt to do things we want to do. These are serious things. We've demolished our public works facility and building a new one. We're going to rebuild Hillman Garage. And the key to that is getting additional funds. If you look at flood mitigation, I was shocked when I came into office. I said, what are we going to do to fix the flooding downtown? And there really wasn't a concrete plan. So I reached out to Governor Hogan and said, could I have $1 million to start this process? And he agreed. And we're working right now to figure out how we're going to fix flood mitigation downtown. Most of the water isn't coming up over the top. It's coming back up the storm drains. So we have a very detailed plan on how we're going to solve this issue. There's a lot of infrastructure issues in this city. I've put more money into roads and sidewalks because kicking the can down the road doesn't work anymore. Our city can't do that. We have a 300-year-old infrastructure, and we're going to keep working harder. In terms of money, when people talk about bond ratings and debt, we've had 2 upgrades in our bonds. And I have to tell you, I've done a lot of interviews with the newspapers, debates. There is nothing harder than going in front of the bond rating agencies in New York because they rip you apart every way you could ever imagine. You're not doing this, here's what you're doing good. And they upgraded us twice. So it's not my opinion that we're doing good. It's these rating agencies that are very difficult. But if I'm elected, we're going to keep moving forward. We're going to keep investing in the pension funds for our public safety employees who put their lives on the line every day. They made a commitment to us, and we're going to honor that commitment to them. Thank you.
I think Mike did a great job getting the bond rating up. Thank you, Mike. That's cool. I haven't got much length here. I can just speak to this from a business perspective. So I, as a small business owner, understand intimately what it's like to do business in this town. And so we need to be thinking about revenues, and we need to be thinking about ideas to raise revenue. On West Street, we were in an area where no one gave this area any chance. We turned that around, we created jobs, we filled vacant buildings, and we created a tax base through business ideas. So we need to be thinking about, I believe as a mayor of this city, that I'm going to improve the quality of life, improve the values of our homes. So we're going to get increased revenues from increased assessments on our houses. I think we are missing a lot of opportunities to get grants. We need to be seeking out as many grants. I joke about I'm going to have a team of grant writing ninjas, and they're going to help us find every possible grant so we can get things done. And then we have to be finding the right private-public partners for this town. So we need to be thinking about things like what they've done in Newport. In Newport, 4 years ago, the University of Maryland asked Annapolis to get into a contest with Newport. It was called Race to Resiliency. So in Newport, they have run away with this idea, and we have just let it fail. They look at tidal rise solutions as a business opportunity. So they take this idea, They create a portfolio of different projects, and then they look out to the private sector to get those projects done and fund those projects. And so with that private money, with that private-public partnership, you can get things done. We know nationally now we're going to be getting less and less money from Washington, D.C. We have to be imaginative on ways to raise revenue. We have to look at programs like we see in other cities. In Charleston, Joe Riley had the confidence of the business community. He convinced them that if we put a small percentage of tax on our sales tax, we could raise revenue that way, and we could use that revenue for big projects. And so I believe that if we win the business community's trust and we tie something like that to a big capital project like a convention center out by Park Place, and that we can tie it also into a property tax decrease. Our property taxes are ridiculous in this town. People are leaving the town and going to the county because they're getting less service and more tax. So we have to look at revenues. I'll be focusing on revenues. I'll be making the business community strong in this town, and I believe that we're going to solve a lot of problems with that. Thank you.
All right. Candidates have a 1-minute rebuttal opportunity. I forgot on the first question, but here we are on the second. So, Mike, if you'd like to take a 1-minute
Sure.
rebuttal.
One of the things, there we go. One of the things we talked about from Mr. Buckley was grants. And I can tell you that in my administration, we've had a 40% increase in grants that we've gotten. But you were also accurate. We're getting less and less money from the government. So if we're getting less and less money, how are we going to keep increasing grants? And when we talked about, well, you know what, everybody's assessments are going to go up and we're going to lower their taxes, that's contradictory. If your assessments go up, your taxes go up. So I think that's something we have to think about. But other than that, you know, I admire the work you've done on West Street. I think it's been a good thing for the city.
Gavin, would you like a follow-up on anything? You're good? Oh, okay. Next question. This battery is about economic development. There'll be 2 questions. The first one, what are the key factors stalling economic development, both downtown and the rest of Annapolis? How significant are permitting issues in that regard? Have these been adversely affected by the drop in staffing at planning and zoning since 2009? What are your key recommendations to ensure a healthy business climate for all parts of Annapolis? We start with Gavin.
So we all agree, whether you're a resident trying to get a deck put on the back of your house, whether you're a business owner trying to start a business in this town, and I've started several of them, or if you're a developer, you all think the system is broken. So we have a broken permit system. We have an unfriendly business environment in this town, and we have to turn that message around. So not to put all the blame on the city employees, but we have to take a long, hard look at what's going on in the permit office. I believe our city employees are afraid to make a decision because they feel it will be politicized. We have to give them the tools to make the decisions so they can go ahead and do their job. So we have to create a business environment that's friendly. We have to give our staff the confidence to make decisions. We have to staff our positions. And then when we give them that confidence, we have to also ask them the question. We have to say, you are in the service business too. You know, you work for us. So when someone goes into a permit office, you should be trying to help them. We have this us versus them thing happening on. This line gets drawn in the sand. So many people say they don't want to do business in this town because of the permitting process. So we have to reverse that. So I'm planning on creating an office where you can do a one-stop shop for a permit. And it'll be one of those vacancies that we can fill on Main Street. And there's programs out there. I'm not saying I'm an expert on this, but I've seen programs in San Diego and other cities in the country where they do a one-stop permit kind of process. And I think that we need to do that because that permit office, and I joke about there being a conference table in the window, and above that conference table there's a 90-day counter. So at the very least, when the public walk by, they can see people with their heads in their hands. You know? And so people realise that these people have been in this office this long waiting for a permit. It takes years and years to get things done in this town. It shouldn't be like that. And as we wait years and years for things to happen, if it's a no answer or a yes answer, we should just make the decision. But if we if we just sit around and we don't do anything and no development happens here, and we need thoughtful development, we need the right kind of development that gets things done for us. But if we sit around and do nothing, and then we see the whole perimeter of our city get built up, then we're going to get all the negative effects and none of the positive effects. Thank you.
Mike.
When you look at city departments, when you think about what are the most important departments, police and fire come to mind. But when you look at politically in the day-to-day lifestyle, planning and zoning is probably one of the biggest departments that has an impact on your quality of life. So I just want to share with you a couple of things we've done and what we're going to do in the future. I agree with Gavin. I think if you ask anybody going 50 years back, getting a permit in the city has always been an issue. And it comes down to two things: people and process. What we can do for the employees is empower them, give them motivation and confidence that we're going to support them when they make a decision. The other thing we can do is process. And that's what we've done to start to clear up. Before I was mayor, there was two departments. There was planning and zoning and neighborhood environmental programs, really inspection and permits. We combined those to make it more efficient so governments would talk to each other. We had a major reorganization within that. But when it comes to things taking a while, I think there's times where it should take a while. If you talk about the formal Crystal Spring project, if you talk about the Eastport Landing, I don't think we should fast track these things. And I think we should have a firm approach on how we deal with it. But for the average person coming in, we did a couple of things to make it easier. It used to be if you had a permit on your house, you would always have to get it for everything, replacing one window, replacing 10. We put a $500 threshold. If you're getting something less than $500 for the average person, you don't need a permit anymore. We change it from there to use. So if you're doing plumbing or electric, yes, you need a permit. But if you're just changing your floor tiles or carpet and it's $3,000, you don't need a permit anymore. So I understand that issue. We're going to keep working forward to make it more efficient. We're going to try to utilize technology, giving people, when I worked in the private sector and I had a thing called Salesforce, and every day it would pop up what I had to do, when I had to do it, and my boss and I saw what my deadlines were. So I want to use technology to stay on top of people to make them do things more efficiently. There's a lot of work to do, but I'm confident that we're going to get through it in the future. Thank you.
Gavin, you have a minute if you'd like to add anything.
I just want to ask Mike if he's tried to get a permit lately. Because nobody thinks it's better. And so it's nothing against Mike, it's nothing against the city council, but it doesn't feel better. Stand at the top of Main Street and look down and tell me, does it feel any different? Go into the permit office and try to get a permit. It probably feels worse. And then also stand in Robinwood and look up all the boarded houses. It does not feel better,
Mike, you have a minute if you'd like to close this section. You're done. All right. Well, this has briefly gotten mentioned in the question I'm about to pose. There are two major and controversial developments attempting to build within the city, Providence Point and Lofts at Eastport Landing. Both have languished within city bureaucracy and red tape. For those two specific developments, what is your ideal outcome? And there we start with Mike.
Thank you. When we look at the last election, it was really about two major development issues in this city. I won with 59 votes out of 8,000, and I'm humbled by that. I know I didn't win in the landslide. And I realized the two issues is what happened at the old Fawcett's building downtown and what was going to happen at Crystal Spring. We have to go back and remember the history. My opponent wanted this development to happen. I was against it, and I stood here today. People said I haven't stopped it. If I wasn't elected mayor, they would be out there right now chopping down trees and building houses, and that's a fact. What was Crystal Spring? We have to remember, it was a massive commercial and residential development. You had commercial development the size of the Harbor Center, almost 200 townhouses, a West Marine, a Wegmans, an Inn, this huge thing that would have overcrowded our schools, damaged our environment, and clogged up traffic. After rounds and rounds of rejection from city government, the developers packed up their bags and went back to Connecticut. Crystal Spring, as we know it, will never be built, and that's a fact. So what happened now? Providence Point, a group of people, the Lutherans, that wanted to build a senior living facility, came back and said, we would like to build just that piece on the property. And while I think everyone agrees that's much better than what was originally planned, it's still too big, it's still going to jam up our roads, and it's still going to cut down too many trees. So I'm not the person up here saying we're never going to build anything. On 170 acres, you have property rights, but we're going to make sure we do it right. Because there's always time to do the job over, and there's never time to do the job right. And this is an issue that affects us for legacy. You know, we talk about budgets and taxes. You can spend more for recreation, spend less, raise taxes, lower taxes. Once you let something of that size go through, there's no going back. There's no going back on it. For the Fawcett's building, they wanted to put this 3-story monstrosity that was going forward. The day I got elected, and this is why elections matter, the developer pulled out. He wrote in the paper, Mark Wardan, he said, the mayor's elected, I'm not doing it. So do we let that sit empty forever, just a vacant piece of property? No. We did the opposite. We worked together with the community. I remember sitting through numerous public hearings, sitting in people's houses talking about it, and now we've got something that's going to be great for this city. It's keeping our maritime use. The boat shows are going in there. The Boston Whaler dealership, North Sail, and they're going to have a restaurant with rooftop and outside dining. Because if you live in Annapolis and you're not a member of a yacht club or the Fleet Reserve, you can't really eat on the water. It's going to be wonderful. On the Eastport Shopping Center, and I see my time's running out real quickly, everybody wants something to happen there. Everybody wants to see that shopping center redeveloped. We just have to make sure we do it right. There was ambiguity in the code. There's a lot of things that we can make better, and I promise and guarantee you we will make it better and we'll clear that up in the code. Thank you.
So on the Eastport Shopping Centre, the way we've done development in West Street is we get people around the table. We bring all the people in. The Diane Butlers, I know you're out there somewhere. So, and the people from both sides of the aisle, and we get people around the table and we talk about how to get it done. And there's a couple of developments that are coming to West Street soon, and they are unopposed development. They have support letters from the President's Hill Residents Association. They've been brought to the Ward 1 Residents Association and had good support in those areas. So we bring things to the people first, and we get people around the table. We need to get people around the table on Eastport Landing. People in Eastport are not unreasonable. They want that project to be done in some form or another. But obviously the density is too much for these guys, for people on one side of the issue. So I say you can get people around the table and you can meet in the middle and reduce the bulk of that project. And while we're doing that, we should be looking at things like a parking station. At this point in time, when developers come to you and ask for things, you should create things, amenities that we need as a city. So we should leverage those relationships at that point when developers need their permits. So we could have a parking station there, and we could have a trolley or some kind of thing that gets people in and out of the peninsula of Eastport and stops so much traffic going in there, because it is crazy. If any of you guys have been down 4th Street lately, it's like a superhighway. So on Crystal Springs, just because you change the name of a project, it doesn't mean it's stopped, right? Something's going to happen there. But what should happen is what the citizens want. We should be doing the most environmentally sensitive thing that we can do on that site. I'm sure Mike's going to work towards that. But we should be thinking about things, and I think my version of Crystal Springs would be something that the citizens can handle, something that doesn't impact our life, our quality of life, something that adheres to the comprehensive plan. And in a dream world, I would make that developer create a bike path across Forest Drive. And that bike path could get us across Forest Drive, could get us to the Annapolis Middle School where my kid goes to school. It could also get us to the back of Quiet Waters Park. And it could also get people from Hunt Meadow into the historic district safely if we created a good shoulder on Spa Road. And if they do an assisted living, it could get a high-speed wheelchair across there.
Mike, you have a minute if you'd like to take it.
Just real quick on that. I think it's a false narrative to say Crystal Springs wasn't stopped, because you had a plan that was a massive development. That partnership dissolved and they went back. And in terms of the property, you make a lot of friends in this business. You help a lot of people, which is the best part of being mayor. People come forward and they say, you've helped me with so many things. But you also make a lot of enemies. And I've made a lot of enemies, mainly on my stance on development. When you stop a $200 million project, they don't want you to win again. And you can look at the finance reports, but the person that owns that property donated to Gavin's campaign. I guarantee they haven't donated to mine.
Gavin, you want to tell us why you received some money from...
Absolutely, yeah. I know the Richardsons. They've been coming to Lemongrass for a long, long time. So if someone wants to donate to the campaign, she can donate to the campaign. She is not a bad person. She has property rights. We should stop vilifying her and say, look, she has some rights. And so I'm proud to say that she donated to my campaign. That's okay, yeah.
Okay. That's right. Let's move to crime. Crime such as the growing drug crisis and gang violence will be the top of the list of concerns for many people, and Annapolis is no different. Crime in our city is generally concentrated in specific areas, most being in and around public housing. What specific steps would you take to reduce crime in Annapolis while keeping citizens informed of your efforts and without making the residents of public housing feel that they are being singled out as the cause? Here we start with Gavin.
So this is an issue that really matters to me. My mum lives in public housing in Australia. You can get public housing right, and you can look around this city at Bloomsbury Square, Annapolis Gardens, and see attempts to get it right, and we've done it pretty well in those places. The reason we have problems is because they happen in neighbourhoods where people think they've been forgotten. So we have to start caring about people. We have to find investment to turn public housing around, and we have great opportunities here. I see public housing as a great opportunity, but you have to invest in it. If people think you don't care about them, they won't care. So I've been to Baltimore in the last 6 months to a project called Uplands. It was a development that was... they took about 100 acres of blighted Section 8. They knocked it down. They found the right private-public partner. They rebuilt it. They rebuilt it with community centres and bike tracks and landscaping. They had Section 8 rentals, but they also had places you could buy. They had places for $100,000, $120,000, and they topped out at $220,000. And then they had training for people, mortgage training. They had programs for people to get in there and start to achieve the dream. Because you know the rents that some people pay. If you go to Woodside Gardens, you know what Woodside Gardens rent is now? It's $1,800 a month. That's not a cheap rent. And with that, you get hot and cold running gunfire. It is not... I mean, there's no amenities. That's what you pay in a place that gets support. So we need to fix these things. We need to make that our highest priority. I'm happy with Mike's appointment at Beverly as the director of HACA. I think she cares about it. She thinks that we could set the gold standard in public housing in this town if she's allowed to stay. So I think that we should lead the way. We did some of the first public housing in the whole country in this town, and we should be leaders with the state capital. Thank you.
Mike, it's yours.
So the question was to crime in the city of Annapolis and the public housing community. So let me start with the public housing community in Annapolis. One of the things I realized early on is they felt left out. They felt like nobody cared because nobody showed up and nobody had talked to them or engaged them in the process. So one of the first things I did for my transition team, they said you have to inspect all the units. Why does one group get one quality of life and the other people are forgotten? We can't keep turning a blind eye to them. So we went in there and we inspected every single unit in public housing. And I have to tell you, there was a lot of fear going on. People were going door to door. The mayor's going to kick everyone out. He's here to gentrify the city. Not one person was kicked out. In fact, people thank me for coming by. We knocked on their doors. We showed them we cared. And I have a folder this thick of all the inspections that took place and all the things we did. Most of our crime does occur in and around public housing. That's why 80% of our employments are there. When you look at Eastport Terrace Harbor House, there's 2 officers there almost all the time. And we had to switch our model of engaging the community. So we started a community policing initiative, and there's 16 of them right now. Officers getting out of their cars, talking to people, building trust within the community. Coffee with a cop. You've seen we've had 6 national nights out. We're doing more and more to deal with it. I talked earlier, we hired 10 new officers. We've put money for overtime, more money for cameras, and we're going to keep doing that in the future. There was a sense that People weren't feeling the connection. They asked for body cameras. We've implemented body cameras. One of the things I'm proud of is I don't have all the ideas. And most of my best ones don't come from me. They come from my open door session where people tell me, we're going to evolve, we're going to innovate, and we're going to keep doing things differently. The biggest thing we have to do is tackle the heroin problem. And I'd like to share with you some of the work I've done on that. The governor appointed me to the Opioid Intervention Task Force, which was eye-opening. The old model of we'll just lock people up doesn't work anymore. What do we do to get them a better education? What do we do once they get out of prison? What do we do for their health care? How do we get them a job? One of the programs I launched was a second chance job fair. So many people can't find the job once they have a criminal record. So what do? We brought back a project that the city did 10 years ago. We gave people a second chance in our public works department. We teamed up with 10 private sector employees that were willing to give people another chance. 130 people came by, and those are some of the innovative things we're doing to get around it. We're going to make sure we get the drugs off the streets and lock the criminals up, because public safety is the number one priority. It always has been and always will be. Thank you.
So explore that.
I believe in less militarization and more humanization. And so I think that people need to get to know their cops on a different level. We did a little initiative a little while ago called a Colour Run, and we ran a 5-kilometre race through Murray Hill, through Homewood, past the police station, down Taylor, and then down Clay Street. And the finish line was on Clay Street. And the idea was to get people to see cops outside of their uniforms, to meet cops on a different level. So I would try to initiate things that give cops a couple of hours a week to actually coach a sport team, be in a homework program, so that cops can build those relationships. We should incentivize development to come into this town that actually creates housing for police, fire, nurses. We can incentivize development that way. Because if you're a cop and your kid's going to the school, you're going to care about this place a lot more than if you just bus in and out. So, thank you.
You're good? All right. Next question sort of sticks to the same theme, focuses on the Housing Authority. Public housing by design should be transitional housing, a temporary living situation until a permanent solution is found. Unfortunately, that model no longer exists, and public housing has become a long-term solution. Vacancies are rare. Waiting lists are typically 2 years or longer. Do you think that in light of the churning of board members, weak finances, and a possible misuse of finances, HACA is in a position to tackle such problems? What would you suggest that HACA do to increase turnover and assist residents in developing plans to eventually transition out of public housing? So there we start with Mike.
Thank you. One of the legacies I wanted to leave behind was trying to transform the Housing Authority, to make things different. And one of the first things I did was appoint new board members. And I think if you look at the board that I've appointed, it's probably better than any board we've ever had. And I brought people in with specific interest, expertise in certain areas, whether it was public safety, financing, how the housing authorities work in other areas, and they started to transform that. The first thing we had to do was figure out how bad we were, get an audit of what was going on. When they came into office, they were dealt a bad hand, and they've done a lot of work in the future, and I think we have to give them credit for the work they've done. They've got a long road ahead of them, but they're on the right path. I think when you look at the RAD program, bringing in private money to help redevelop these, when you look at the Ross Grant self-sufficiency programs to help people transition out of it, that's the model to go to. But the first thing is getting to show up. As I said, knocking on their doors, talking to people, asking them what they need, trying to improve their quality of life. We can't keep vilifying public housing. 99% of the people are good that live in public housing. Most of the people work. That's a common misconception. People don't work. So we have to do more for job fairs and opportunities, not just a second chance program. When we built the energy park in Annapolis, we reached out to them for a job fair. We reached out for one when we did with Maryland Live Casino. We have to keep giving them jobs and opportunity. That's the key. Once someone has a job, it takes care of so many of their problems. Take care of their insurance, takes care of their financial situation, their housing problem. Half of all divorces are because of financial reasons. We have to do more for jobs and economic opportunity in this city, and that's what I'm going to do to keep moving forward. I'm going to work with the board. I'm going to work with the residents. We have a debate coming up there. I'm going to knock on their doors. I'm going to be the mayor for everyone in Annapolis. And just going back to the comment I made earlier about inspecting the units, it was a lesson my grandparents taught me. Literally right next door to this building, my grandparents had the Royal Restaurant. It was the first restaurant in the city of Annapolis to desegregate. And why did they do it? Because it was popular, because everyone applauded them on the back? Quite the opposite. They got tons of blowback from it, but it was the right thing to do. So when I saw the city's attitude is, well, they live in public housing, we don't need to inspect their units, I didn't believe that. I completely tore down that and said we're going to inspect it. We've improved their quality of life. So I'm the mayor of everyone in Annapolis. Try to be the bipartisan mayor, and I want to lead this city forward over the next 4 years. It's been an honor to serve, and if you give me another chance, I'll keep moving forward, making positive progress. Thank you.
So I'm not sure I agree with that assessment, Dan, that it's just transitional. Because if you go into public housing, like I've been doing a lot for the campaign, and I've been door knocking and doing cookouts in all these areas, there are people there with disabilities, there are seniors. They are not going to graduate to a job. They are not going to find another alternative. And this model that's been used, where we let it deteriorate for as long as possible and then think that if it deteriorates and gets bad enough, somebody's going to leave. They're not going to leave because people are there because they have to be there. So what we have to do is we have to make it desirable. The great thing is there's not that many units. I know people think we have so many public housing units, but we have a manageable number. We just have to come up with a plan, and we have to win people's trust. So if you can win people's trust that you are going to do the right thing by them, that you are not going to eradicate public housing, and this is what people fear. This is what people are telling me when I knock on their doors. They're like, we fear that this board is getting stacked and that this public housing is going to be sold off. So one thing for sure under my term, we will not be cutting deals that are 51% to the developer and 49% to the residents. The residents have to be the priority. We can get creative on public housing. When the Y was looking at buying the rec centre, I was completely against that idea, but I love it that the Y thought there was a market here. So why couldn't we get the Y to create a community centre in the middle of public housing? Because that would be a lifestyle centre that would be accessible to everything. One of my favourite things to do in this town is run around the track or walk around the track at Bates. Because you walk around that track, it's Latino families, it's African American families, it's white families, it's rich families and poor families. And we need to be creating places like that that are desirable. Thank you.
Mike, you have a minute for rebuttal if you would choose to use it.
I would just say one thing about the fear that's going on out there. There is a lot of fear that people are going to shut down public housing. And we need to stop that fear. We need to stop that type of campaigning that says the mayor's coming in and is going to shut down all public housing. Because I'm not. It wasn't easy. Believe me, I didn't score any political points for doing this, helping people in public housing. So I have a passion for it. I'm not here to throw people out. I'm here to make their quality of life better.
Anything further on this? We're good. All righty. Now we'll move to something about other awards. It is safe to say that much of the attention of our city's elected officials and appointees is focused on issues facing Ward 1 and 8, downtown in particular. What issues do you see facing the other wards that need particular attention, and what would you do about it? Cite specific examples. We start with Gavin on this.
So we need to bring economic vitality to all parts of the city. So I have some ideas for different regions, but definitely I think our biggest focus is in marginalised communities. So I think that the best solution to crime is a job. So what's happening here is kids are growing up with thinking they don't have any hope, that they don't have any opportunity, that they can't get a job. We have to reverse that. We have to make them believe that there is opportunities. So I think that when we find the private-public partners for these redevelopments of public housing, we need to make sure that we create apprenticeship programs or job training programs, things that are relevant that get the kids out and give the kids skills. So I think in those areas of public housing, in the areas that we have, we need to be looking at ideas for jobs. In economic ideas, I think that on, say, Forest Drive, we should be putting some of the onus on infrastructure, on the developments that are happening. One of the things I want to do on Forest Drive is I want to get a very wide bike path on the right-hand side of Forest Drive. I know it's a county road, but we should work with the county to do this. And that bike path could get people to jobs, could slow people down, could get them to different commercial centres. When I go around the city and I look at West Annapolis, The connector idea I have is an idea to get people to that commercial centre. West Annapolis could be connected to the Poplar Trail and out to the B&A Trail, and that should be something you do when you go around this city. On Maryland Ave, I spent some time on Maryland Ave, did some great talks. I have some great ideas for Maryland Ave to re-energise that part of the city, even though it's in Ward 1. But we could do things like we need to close the street off. We need to get another restaurant on the other end of Maryland Ave to bookend it. We should close it off on Friday and Saturday nights and make it pedestrian only. We can, if we could work with, if we could work with some of the property owners that own the property down the street, we could get some head-in parking thing. I've got a lot of different ideas on commercial stuff. In Eastport, I think that we should do a thing called the 4th Street Ferry. We should go from the Sailing Hall of Fame to 4th Street on the weekend on the half an hour. We can get transit funds for that, and that'll just be a reason for people to go across. One of the things that happens to me when people come in from another country here, I take them to Eastport for the Annapolis experience. We need to be making that Annapolis experience about our downtown. And so I'm sorry to come back to downtown, but it all comes back to the Market House, fixing that, sorry.
All right.
For everybody.
Mike.
So the question was on other wards, correct?
Right.
All right. So I'll tell you a couple of things we're doing. You know, we have 8 wards in the city of Annapolis. Some of them we call the forgotten wards, Ward 6, Ward 7, Ward 5 on the outskirts. We need to connect these wards and connect people to them. We have a vibrant maritime industry in this city. Over 3,000 people are employed. So when we talk about giving people jobs, we have to connect them with people in Ward 7. You know, when I talked to them, we had a maritime summit. Over 100 businesses came by. You know what their number one problem is? They can't find work. They can't find labor. They said we got over 100, 200 jobs we could fill tomorrow if people were trained. So connecting with people. Do you know where Ward 7 is? Can you connect them in that way? The other thing we have to do is on the environmental front. Keep partnering with different communities and different environmental groups. You know, we have the first stormwater project between the city of Annapolis and the Housing Authority, and the first one between the city and Anne Arundel County, partnering people with on these environmental programs, teaming up with neighborhoods and nonprofits like St. Luke's and these other churches that are going forward, using our money to help go out. In addition to that, revitalization is key. I think the biggest area for redevelopment is in Ward 3, Upper West Street as you're coming out of town. There's so many things we can do to make that better. You know, we just completed the Upper West Street study, which gives us key indicators on how we're going to do that. Part of it's just showing up. You know, people always say knowledge is power. Half of it's just hearing from people. So as I do as mayor, I go around the different community associations and I talk with people. What would you like to have happen? One of them was in Weems Creek in Ward 2. They said there's all these derelict boats on the county. People are drinking and smoking, just having parties all hours of the night. So we worked with Anne Arundel County. And we basically gave our harbor master the ability to enforce on that waterfront, cleaning up the waterways. I had Ward 3, Alderwoman Rhonda Pendell-Charles Ward. We went over there, and I brought every single department head to their meetings twice. Why did I do that? I wanted to show that we cared about the community. We're not just focused on Ward 1 in the downtown, that we're going to reach out to everybody else. So if you look at what I've done over the last 4 years, I don't have time to get into it now. I have specific things I've done in every ward, and I look forward to continuing that partnership in the future because I'm the bipartisan mayor for all of Annapolis. Thank you.
Gavin, if you'd like to add anything on this topic, then we'll leave it at that. All righty. Well, don't forget to fill out your questions. I think we'll have a good amount of time. John is the man who will pick them up, I think.
Got them in the back, too.
Okay. So, again, if anything's been inspiring to you, you want to know more or ask a specific question to a candidate, this is a good time to get your thoughts together and write it down. All right. The next question is really about promises kept and looking forward to the future. So it's a two-parter. I think what I'll do is I'll ask it first to Mike, and then we'll have Gavin be able to say whatever he likes after Mike has spoken, and then I'll ask Gavin a question and Mike can rebut. So first, to Mike. In 2013, you campaigned on stopping Crystal Spring, reducing water rates, opposing zoning changes to 110 compromise, shelving the city dock master plan, shoring up pensions, ending tax and fee increases, and making employees responsible for good service. How do you think you've done?
I may have to ask you to repeat that list halfway, but let me hit it from the top. So I think we already talked about Crystal Spring, as we said. The original plan will never be built. The recent plans have been rejected going forward. On the pension front, we talked about it. We have to invest in our pension fund so it doesn't get underfunded. Under my administration, we've doubled what we're putting towards that, and the city employees have paid more as well. What were some of the other ones?
Water rates, zoning,
Sure.
Compromise streets, shelving city dock master plan. What'd you tell us
So
about that?
I think on the city dock master plan, for the most part, we have, but there's specific things we haven't done. One of them was a cultural resource mitigation study. How are we going to protect our historic buildings in the future? There was a number of studies in that master plan that are important. Now you look at the Fawcett's building. They're raising that up about 20 inches. Why? Because you have to think of new, innovative ways to fix it. When it comes to water bills, I can tell you this. Every vote, and I'm sure someone's going to fact check this, but every vote that I can remember on the city council, there was only one vote that was all Democrats versus all the Republicans, and that was on lowering the water bills. And so why that happened, I don't know. I'm going to continue to fight. And even though I couldn't lower your water bills, which is, everybody knows, has water, trash, refuse, stormwater fee, I said, let me lower the trash bills to help offset it. And we've lowered the trash bills by 46%. A couple other ones.
Well, why don't you tell us about what you've done to make employees responsible for good service? That's kind of the last part of that question.
Employees responsible for good service? Sure. I think one thing is we try to motivate some of our employees, and I hold the department heads to a high standard. I walk around the town. One time I walked from my house in Hunt Meadow all the way to actually City Hall, and I caught a number of things. If it was a bus shelter where the trash was overflowing, if somebody just left a mattress on the side of the road, I walk around town, and I always hold them accountable saying, we have to do better, right? If there was a parking problem going on downtown and I snap a photo that says, how come there's only one person working there to get people out? So I think I'm a hands-on mayor. I try to be out of the office as much as I can. I learned early on, you can't be the man in the high castle that sits behind a desk all day. You got to be around people. I think technology is another area we can work on to help keep people in terms of tasks. My office does it. We go through every week and say, what were the complaints that came in? Did we solve them? I think particularly in inspection and permits, we can have a better fast-tracking system to hold them accountable. You haven't done it. Why haven't you done it? And when are we going to fix it? Thank you.
Okay. All right, Gavin, if you'd like. How do you think he's done? How will you improve?
So I think the City Dock master plan and the replacement of the bulkhead is a great example of what we do in this city. We do just enough to get by. So I spent a little while ago, I spent the day with the mayor from Frederick. He took you around that town and he'd take you to a restaurant. He'd say, see this ceiling here? I helped them put that up. He'd take you to their theatre and see the gold braid around this theatre. I stood on a ladder and I painted that. And then it'll take you to their Riverwalk. And if any of you have been to the Frederick Riverwalk, it is beautiful. It has waterfalls. It has little fountains. It has bridges with art. That mayor will stand there and he'll point to a flower bed and say, on that flower bed, there'll be 1,000 daffodils will come up in that next month, And so he cared about those details. We did just enough. We poured concrete on the city bulkhead, smoothed it over, lost a couple of feet on either side of Ego Alley, and then we said, okay, look at us. We did a great job. We saved $1 million. I want you to spend that $1 million, Mike. Spend that $1 million on backflow preventers and spend that $1 million on pumps. Just for that one low point, people from the boat show are reaching out to me and sending me pictures now and saying, we have never seen the water this high at boat show. So we should have spent that $1 million and we could have used that first storm drain as a test case for us. On the City Dock master plan, I say this all the time. I want a park, not a parking lot. And the way we pay for it, what we do is, first of all, we cut the deal with the Green Street parking lot, with the Green Street, and that should be excess parking over there, and that we have to strive to be more beautiful. And I will convince the business community that if we make it beautiful, if we care about those sorts of things, more people will come and business will be better. But I know people are terrified to lose a parking space, but we need to reconfigure it, and we need to think about things in a broader way. Thank you.
I think it's fair to allow Mike a little bit of a rebuttal since it was brought up, this whole story of the bulkhead.
So on the City Dock bulkhead, I've said this maybe a dozen times, and hopefully it's the last time I have to explain it. When we rebuilt that bulkhead, We rebuilt it not only on schedule and $1 million under budget. That $1 million is going to be used for other things in the city. Why did we build it that way? When I came into office, I said, how does this project affect sea level rise and climate change? And their answer was, it doesn't. I said, well, you have to change the plans. They said, no. This goes back to a grant that was under a previous mayor, and you have to use the money for exactly what it was designed for. If you change it, you'll lose all that funding. So could I have lost all the funding for it and do it again? Probably could have, but the dock could have collapsed at that point. So I do want to make it better, and we are installing backflow preventers. We have a plan. Not just on that, I went door to door and talked to businesses. We're applying for a $3 million federal grant because, people say it floods, it hurts business. But how much does it hurt their business? We're getting those numbers on a day-to-day basis when it floods and when it doesn't to go forward. I got a $5 million ask to the legislature this year. We're partnering with the Naval Academy on it. We do have a plan to address it. We just have to find the funding going forward.
Gavin, it's only fair if you'd like to say anything. You're good? All right. Well, next question goes to you anyway, so yeah. All right, Mr. Buckley. Okay. While you do not have any history to judge your political promises, you have floated some of your own over the course of the campaign. Notably, these have been about increasing mobility in the city, efficiencies in the process of working with the city, and increasing the desire for people to come to Annapolis. How do you think you're going to fare on these promises?
I think no problems. Yeah, so I don't, in the business world, and I'm not saying I'm some expert business owner. I'm learning as I go along. I'm learning about politics, But in the business world, you don't do things unless you have a way to pay for them. So everyone says, oh, Gavin has all these ideas. How is he going to get there? Well, I do look at them, and they're not going to get done until we find a source of funding. So if you take things like the trolley idea, we can get we can get federal transportation funds to buy the plant and equipment. And then we treat that as a business. We make that a business that someone can run for 2 years. And the way that person gets paid is through a tip system. I've talked to the electric cab drivers and talk about the money that they make. They can make from $50 to $500 a day in the old system when they were working on tips. So this tip system that I talk about it's in a trolley. It's an articulated one, so we can take one section off when it's not being used and then put the section back on the weekends. It has a long, clear tube, and that long, clear tube is attached to a vacuum that's next to the driver. And when the people get on the trolley, and it's a fun trolley, they want to get on, it's part of the experience. And what's great about the trolley is it gets people out of their cars at the top of Main Street next to the empty garages, and it gets them to different commercial zones. But they open up a little gate in this clear tube. It's like you see in the bank. You put your dollar in, and the dollar flies to the front of the cab, and then the kid asks the dad for another dollar. And then that also the guy and this is someone's business, and the guy that's driving that cab has a PA system, and he is telling people about St. John's and Maryland Ave and Gate 3 as he's making its way down the street. Now, on the Main Street idea, people think, oh, he's going to take a row of parking away and ruin the city. First of all, I'm going to sit with the business community and say, look, I promise you, if you believe in this, it will be a good thing. And what we can do when we rebuild Main Street now is we can extend the sidewalk about 1.5 feet. And if we could extend the right-hand side of Main Street sidewalk 1.5 feet, we could actually create cafes from Treaty of Paris to Cafe Normandy to Joss to Acme, and all those cafes would be on a curb, and they would all have a view of the water. And those cafes would bring an extra $100,000 of revenue to those businesses, and it would sit people on Main Street looking at the water and create what I believe would be a real European kind of cafe culture on Main Street. And so it's just an idea. And in 2 years, if everyone hated it, well, we would take it away. We put parking spaces there. But if you don't try anything, you don't ever know. So,
just a follow-up. The trolley eliminates all cars?
No,
it's alongside cars.
It just gets people out of their cars at the top of Main Street. So if you sign people into the garages, the state garage is empty all weekend long, 7 nights a week. The Whitmore garage is empty. My dream is people get out of their cars at the top of Main Street at the visitor centre, and they actually walk down Main Street. Because I think in this day and age, the one thing we have in this town, and the one good news about an Amazon world, is that at Amazon, a person can press a button and the thing at the mall will be at their doorstep the next day. But we have a real Main Street. We have real history. We have real water. We have real people, real neighbours that are on that Main Street. So if you make your Main Street special and exciting, that is a value added to retail. And so we have to take advantage of that.
Okay.
May I comment on that?
Yes, I'm turning to you next.
Oh, thank you. So a lot of the things we heard, I believe he wants to do them. And I believe he's passionate about them. I'm not questioning your sincerity at all. But what I am going to say is that's unrealistic to do the things he says. There's not a way to pay for them. And I'd like to explain to you. If you look at transportation, right, we're going to get a federal grant to pay for it. The federal government does not give you grants to pay for 100% of it. The city still has to cough up money. With that being said, out of all the cities pretty much in Maryland across the country, you only get 35% of your money back from the fare box. Even Ocean City, which has the easiest and best transportation maybe in the country, 1 lane up, 1 lane back, they lose money and have to subsidize it. So when we talk about running a $5 million transit system, it blows my mind to say, well, we're just going to put $1 in here and it's going to fly forward, and then a kid will put another $1. I mean, think about that. We're going to raise $5 million off someone voluntarily putting up $1. That's not realistic. And if you look at the cost of a free trolley, a free boat system, a spray park downtown, a bike lane across Forest Drive, you're talking about tens of millions of dollars. And besides a tip system and federal grants, which are drying up, I don't know how we honestly pay for it.
Okay. Gavin, you got a minute.
So I'm not talking about the whole public transport system being on a tip. I'm just talking about a trolley that goes from Gate 3 to downtown and a trolley that goes from the stadium to the Eastport Bridge. That little fun trolley, that part of the experience, I'm talking about that being on a tip system. This is definitely not about that. That's a much bigger question. So.
All right, well, let's stop it there. I know we could go on with this for a while. We're going to take a little Tim break. Right.
Yes. Hello. That was fun so far, huh? Okay. Day drinking makes everything a little more fun, right? So who's got their cards and they want to have questions? John's right there. He's going to collect questions. We got one right here. Who's got another card? We got 2 cards. We got 3 cards right back there. So just grab John and give him the cards. And so here's what we've been doing. So we're trying to keep this as nonpartisan as possible. Just, obviously, I mean, it's not going to take the offer of free gift cards to Metropolitan or someone waiving all my parking tickets to sway us, right? Right? Yeah.
Right.
So what we had, the cards we've collected so far from you folks, we've had on a board in the back, and as these gentlemen have answered the questions, we've taken the cards off because we weren't going to revisit what's already been asked. If people had multiple questions, then we stacked those cards, and those are the cards because we're not going to ask the same question of each candidate, so it had to be individual to each person. So if we don't get to your card, we got cards from virtually everyone. So if we don't get to your card, I'm sorry about that, but I'm not sorry. Because I got to mow the lawn today. So we're going to take a quick 2-minute break, and this is a real 2-minute break. It's not a city council 2-minute break. So to go through the cards real quick. So finish up your drink, smoke if you got them, and we'll be back in literally 2 minutes. Okay?
When it comes to diamonds, there are 2 things that matter: reputation and value. At Zachary's, you know our reputation. We pride ourselves on providing the best experience for every customer every day, because we wouldn't be here without you. But what you might not know is that Zachary's is the only diamond importer in Annapolis. We cut a check for $500,000 and deal directly with the De Beers site holder to bring you the best quality diamonds. That's just 1 step away from a mine. So by the time a diamond gets to your hands, only 2 people have touched it, not 6. I'm Steve Samaras. And at Zachary's, we've spent decades cultivating relationships around the world to ensure we can offer the best value on a diamond. But the relationships we value most are the ones we create with our customers right here in town.
Zachary's, online at zacharysjewelers.com. If it's a diamond, we're a good place to start.
Very few things in life are so precious and so irreplaceable that we all must do our part to protect them. The Chesapeake Bay is one of those things. You can do your part by contributing to the Chesapeake Bay and Endangered Species Fund. It's that little line item you'll see at the very end of your Maryland tax return. Any amount you give makes a difference, and it's tax deductible. I'm Peter Francho, Maryland Comptroller. Our bay and rivers thank you. Learn more about the Chesapeake Bay Trust at cbtrust.org.
If you don't like huge draft beer selections, don't go to Union Jack's. If you're not looking for an incredible menu and dozens of screens to catch your favorite teams, I repeat, do not go to Union Jack's. Not into darts and pool? Good. Live music not your thing? Perfect. Bottom line, if you are not interested in the best dining and bar experience in Annapolis, avoid Union Jack's. But if this all sounds totally friggin' awesome to you, visit Union Jack's in Annapolis, just across from Whole Foods in the Annapolis Town Center. Union Jack's, not your old-style pub.
All right, class, take your seats, please. I will turn this restaurant around and take us all home. All right, what we're doing right now is we went through the questions. Like I said, we eliminated the ones that were for both, and we eliminated the questions that had already been asked. So
they're picking their own questions.
They're picking their own questions.
No, not that one.
No. They're not picking their own questions. Do not boo me. I will not be booed. If I want this, I'll go home. I get booed there all the time. They are picking the questions for each other. Apologies, please? That's what I thought. Thank you. Was that so hard? You see them apologize to me when they're wrong, sweetie? It's nice to hear. Okay. So in the meantime, while they get through the questions, I'm just reminding you, if you are not a regular subscriber of the Maryland Crabs podcast, go to your little phone, go to your iPhone. They have a little podcast app there. I like Downcast, but I'm a nerd. And then I think it's Google Play on Android. And you subscribe to our podcast. And at least once a week, because we have one show that downloads precisely noon every Thursday. We have a show that's an hour long. And then we have what we call little crab cakes. Isn't that cute? Because they're not quite as long as a regular episode. They run between 25, 30 minutes and whatever we want to do. And John also has a daily briefing for the at&nbsp, which is every day around noon, and that's about a 10-minute news cap of the most important news stories of the day, which I actually listen to. I tell them I do, but I don't, because I listen to a lot of stuff. But that should be it. How are we looking? I will not be ignored, Dan. Fatal Attraction. Hey.
I'm back?
Okay, great. Okay. And it's back to you, sir.
Wonderful. Well, we had many questions submitted, and what we have done is allowed the candidates to blindly choose the questions that the other candidate will address. But they didn't know what those questions are, so they couldn't make them particularly mean or anything else. All right, so we will start with Mike, and this is the first question that Gavin picked for Mike. Newtown 20 residents are living in substandard conditions, mold problems, plumbing problems, problems with bats, crime. What are your plans to improve all of that, Mike?
You're absolutely right. And if you look at public housing in Annapolis, Newtown may be one of the worst. The first things you have to do before you fix a problem is know what the problem is. When the federal government does inspections, they don't really inspect the housing units. They do a random sampling. Maybe we'll take one here, one over there. They don't know what's happening in every unit. My administration changed that. So now we know what we have to do. We're going to work with the housing authority to make sure they can fix it. I told them they can use our lobbyists to help apply for more federal and state grants. We have to ask more, not just of ourselves, but other elected officials to get more funding. I think the program they're working on with RAD, Public-Private Partnership, will help take that forward, and I'm confident that we're going to be able to help fix these problems in the future.
Wow, quick answers like that. We're going to need more questions, John. All right. Okay, well, this is an easy one. This goes to Gavin. Sanctuary cities, what are your thoughts?
Right. I was doing really good at the editorial board thing with John, and I thought I'm going to win the endorsement of the paper. And the last question was about sanctuary cities, and it was like this. So I'm an immigrant, if you didn't know. And so, so I believe in the need for that. But it's also about timing. And so I'm not sure if I'm all in, but I believe down the road, I believe in the good things about sanctuary cities. The good things about sanctuary cities is that policemen can't choose people because of the colour of their skin. Right? The good thing is that people should not be afraid of reporting a crime. So we need those tools to report crimes. And another thing, my kids go to public school, you know. So those kids go to school and they're afraid that they're going to come home and not see their parents. And so they live in fear ever since this subject has come up. So I believe in the process. I believe in what we voted on, the safe cities that we voted on, the Non-Discrimination Act that Mike put forward and the city voted on. I believe in that. I think there's a time when we should make that decision. I'm not sure if it's now because with a president the way we have at the moment, I'm not sure if I want to make a target out of this city. Thank you.
The rules were that it's a one-shot deal and it goes 2 minutes per person, and that's all. I'm sorry. But you can answer this question, Mike. Panhandlers and homeless people are increasing in numbers, particularly around Church Circle. What are you going to do about that?
There's a lot of people struggling in this city. Everyone in this room right now, they're going to go home, probably drive their car, lay in their bed at night and not have to worry about where they sleep. That's not the reality for many people. We have a number of Title I schools. I believe 70% of people at Germantown Elementary and Mills Parole are on free and reduced meals. There's a big problem out there. So one of the things we're doing is we're trying to work with our nonprofit sectors. Probably the biggest and best thing we've done is a lighthouse shelter. When you look at the work that they do, they don't give people a hand out, they give them a hand up. And the city's partnered with them. We've donated money to their campaign and other groups to help people go forward. As far as panhandling goes, you know, part of what we do as a government is sometimes reactive, not proactive. You know, it's not Big Brother where there's someone on every corner every second. If someone calls our police department or if someone calls our inspections unit, they'll ask them to leave if they're playing music and disorderly. So we do have people out there, we ask them to move, but if someone comes back every day, that means someone's got to come out there every day. And we live in a free country, and we can't just ban someone from coming downtown. But we'll make sure that our police and our inspectors are on top of it, moving them along, because it is a distraction to quality of life and everyone's enjoyment. Thank you.
All right, Gavin, this is the one I'm sure you've been waiting for. Why did you ignore properly filing an application for your building mural with the Annapolis Historic Preservation Commission?
I love this question. So it's pretty simple. The rules have never been there for paint or paint color. So we got a citation for peeling paint. We took it to our lawyer and we looked at the code, and the code, Historic Preservation Code, clearly states in emboldened letters, the Historic Preservation Commission does not have jurisdiction over paint or paint color. So we saw that as an opportunity to do public art. We didn't avoid the process. We didn't believe there was a process. So I'm happy that people come and look at that mural, and I'm happy if they hate it. I'm happy because I just want them to stop and look at something. I believe good public art is a necessary thing for this town. You don't have to be rich or poor to enjoy it. So we believed we didn't break the law, but after we went through the process with the city, and we went to a judge who we thought would favour the municipality, and when the judge said, favour the municipality, we were respectful, we put in the application, and we filed. But I really, truly believe that I did not want the historic preservation to be in charge of artistic content, and that's what would happen. You know, an arborist and a couple of architects and a lawyer or whatever know more about art than any of us in this room. Thank you.
All right. Okay. This is an interesting one for Mike. Some are concerned about your relationship with the national GOP. shutting down Chief Baker, sanctuary cities. The bottom line is, do you support President Trump?
The big elephant in the room. So let's address this, and I'll start with sanctuary cities since it came up again. If you look at these other debates, and one of the great things about what we're doing here, we're talking, we're having a good time, but all of these are televised. And in 2 previous debates, Gavin was asked if he supported it, and he said yes. So I'd like to talk to you about what sanctuaries are and what they're not. Sanctuary city is very simple. It mainly means one thing. If somebody commits a violent crime, class 1 felony, a murder or rape, that the local jurisdiction, your police department, cannot cooperate with the federal government. I think that's a terrible thing to tie our police department's hands. What a sanctuary city is not. A sanctuary city doesn't mean that the police department can deport people. We never have, we never will. It doesn't mean that a kid's going to lose in-state tuition. It doesn't mean they're going to lose a driver's license. And it doesn't mean any of the things people make it out to be. It's very simple if you look it up. Should our police department be able to work with the federal government in the case of a class 1 crime? Number 1. Number 2, this election is about local issues. It's not about President Trump. It really isn't. You know, when you look at the issues that happen in this city, I know we got the Gavin crowd over there. I've done things. You know, you look at the last election, right? When they were doing presidential endorsements, I endorsed John Kasich because I thought he was modest, bipartisan, and would be good for the city. When Donald Trump does things that aren't good for the city, I talk out about it. I think everybody in this room, Democrat, Republican, thought it was terrible to defund the Chesapeake Bay. When we had that Paris Court of Climate, I signed on to it along with all the members of the city council. But the one thing I won't do is sit here and condemn and say, oh, I have to respond to every single tweet the president does. Because I'll tell you a fact, he's tweeted more in his first 5 months than I have in 4 years. So every time I get a response about, well, what do you think about the president this? What do you think about the president that? It distracts away time from what we're doing on the local issue. I want to make our fire department stay number 1. I want to work on our police department to keep giving them the tools they need. So if you look at my administration, whether it's Trump, Barack Obama, you never really hear me talk about them. Why? It's not important to the day-to-day issues of your quality of life. Thank you.
All right, Gavin, somebody has written to you and said that Mayor Pantelides sent a mailer saying you wanted a Ferris wheel at City Dock. Is that true or is it not?
I love this question because I'm flattered that Mike's created a website that says see Gavin's Ferris wheel. And I'm going to blame John and Tim for that question. So the way I'm on the record saying we need things for families to do when they get downtown. There is nothing to do when you get downtown. It can't just be T-shirt shops and bars. And so what do we do to get families downtown? I say we need things like city bike shares. We need a blade of grass at City Dock, for God's sake. We need... I've said carousels, spray parks. These are ideas you see in other cities. And when the Ferris wheel idea came up, I was on Annapolis, and I said to these guys, here's an idea for City Dock. What do you think of this? A Ferris wheel, and we call it on Annapolis. And so, so I'm going to blame them, and it's based on the London Eye. So last time I checked, London was a pretty historic city. And this is just an idea. I'm going to have a lot of them, if everyone just has a reaction to it. But I think we should be not making our City Dock the biggest, the most pretty parking lot in America. It should be other things than just parking bays. So, yeah.
If I could, I'm not sure if that was a yes or a no. If it was a joke.
It was yes, but in jest. Maybe. To Mike. 2 to 3 years in, do you think SB Plus, the entity which deals with parking, right, is doing a good job, the job you expected?
I think they've done better. We're in a better spot now than we were 4 years ago. But I think we have a lot of work to do going forward. I think the fact that we can pay with parking on our cell phones is the right step forward. I think the fact that the city of Annapolis passed got rid of rules to allow private people to open up parking. That's opening up probably close to 100 spaces is positive. I like the fact that a circulator's on an app, and I like their vision for the future, that you'll be able to find real-time data in the garages of how many spots that there are. I think that the fact that we put residential parking permits online is more efficient and is better for residents. But I think there's a lot of learning curves. They've hit a lot of stumbling blocks. Parking is a big issue in this town over the last 40 years, not just 4 years, and will continue to be. But I think incrementally we're moving in the right direction going forward. And with the little bit of time I have left, and not to go back to the previous question, because on the Ferris wheel, when you listen to it, and that's why I did the website, a lot of people say things like, my opponent said this, my opponent said that, and it's never backed up. So I said, I want you to watch the video link. I want you to read the transcript in his own words, because it wasn't just a joke. I mean, there was very specific details about, look, it's going to be on a 2-year lease. Here's how we're going to fund it. It's going to be a 50 by 20. And it was very detailed explanations of how this would happen. And so if that was a joke, I think we have to ask the question, is the carousel a joke? Is the spray park a joke? Is the ice park downtown a joke? Is a trolley a joke? I think we need to hear clearly which ones are a joke and which ones aren't.
I have to let Gavin respond. It's a direct question.
They are all ideas, and everything's on the table. So I'm not going to say, but if you don't have any ideas, if you don't try anything, and I'm happy that Mike's come up with one lately, the dog park, because I would love to tell you how my dog park idea bit me in the ass 2 years ago.
Okay. On that note, let's see. Moving on. Now this one goes to Gavin, right? Neither candidate addressed the gang problem with MS-13 reaching into our elementary, middle, and high schools to recruit, abduct, beat up, and kill our young people. What is your plan for dealing with the gang members?
So obviously my kids go to public school, and this is an area that we're talking about. This isn't a private school thing. This is it's happening in public schools. And so we have to make it a priority to keep our kids occupied. What happens is the parents of some of these kids are working 2 jobs. They are not around to see what their kids are doing. So when we make things unaffordable, when we make summer camp only affordable to a certain amount of people, when we defund a rec center, when we don't have soccer fields for kids to play on or things for kids to do, they get into trouble. And it's not just MS-13. There's a lot of things that we should be looking at in this town. There's different types of gangs. Different kids are getting hold of guns. Kids shouldn't be getting hold of guns. We should have strict gun control in this town. We should have strict gun control in public housing for illegal firearms. That should be a one strike and you're out thing. And so we have to get to our kids at middle school. That is the crossroads. And I see my kid at middle school right now, and I can see what happens. You can go one direction or the other. And so we are failing as a society, and we can't just say, oh, well, it's the county, we can't do anything about it. Well, we feed the school. It's our kids. It's our future. And so that has to be a huge priority for us to make sure that we have things for our kids to do so they can't get into those gangs.
Let's see. Here's one for Mike. What are your plans for partnering with the county to make the safe stations inclusive, as the initiative, I believe, started in Annapolis for this program? Tell us what that means.
Sure. So one of the things we talked about earlier is demonizing people that have a mental health addiction. We have to change the mantra of just locking people up. One of the programs that the county started and the city followed on was safe stations, which means you can go to any fire department in the city of Annapolis or Anne Arundel County and ask for help. You can walk in there and say, I have an addiction, and maybe you have drugs on you. Can you get me help? No consequences. They don't arrest you. They connect you with mental health agencies going forward. We've done that, and we've had, I think, 100, 150 people come by willing, and I think we need more of that. More importantly, even though the city doesn't run many of the social services or mental health, we have to work with the county and the state and our other elected officials and ask for more. There's a big stigma around mental health, which is a major cause of addiction, and how are we going to deal with that going forward? So I think we've partnered with Anne Arundel County in a number of ways. We've partnered with them on transportation. We've partnered with them on getting boats out of Weems Creek. We've partnered with them on the elections. We've partnered on a number of things. I think we need to continue to build that going forward and offering more people opportunity and hope, saying, look, you're not just going to get arrested. There's going to be a second chance for you when you get outside. We're going to connect you with mental health agencies. It's the biggest issue we face, and Gavin's absolutely right. Absolutely right. When I was in one of my meetings, I was talking with people, and they were talking about how they engage kids, and they said, oh, yeah, we have this great program we're doing in middle school. And I said, kids are doing heroin in middle school? They said, yeah, by the time they're in high school, they're already gone. They said they're already gone. So I think getting engaged at a younger age is so important, and we're going to continue to do that in the future. Safe Stations is just one of things we've done, but there's more we're going to do in the future.
All righty. Here's a thought for you, and you can react to it, Gavin. My husband and I love Annapolis, but we can't afford an expensive house. So it makes it hard to see our future here without affordable housing in neighborhoods. We don't want to move, so do you have any plans that would help young families like ours?
Of course. So the thing that happens in our town is we're slowly becoming a city full of $1 million houses. And some of those $1 million houses people don't even live in. They're second homes. So I think we should incentivize development that creates product that is accessible to young people. Maybe a studio type of development or smaller types of programs. We have a massive opportunity in some of the locations of public housing to do that thing that I talked about, the Uplands project. There's enough room in these areas to create excess housing that could be for purchase. So the Uplands program that I talked about, the product was $120,000, $150,000, $220,000 at the top end. And if you had people living in those areas and that kind of, the Uplands project that I'm talking about, it's a 5-year-old project. Only one person has dropped out of that project in 5 years. So we need to incentivize development. We need to make sure that this town doesn't become a town full of $1 million houses. I want young people to be able to afford to live here. I want my kids to buy a house here one day. And I want those kids to start businesses in this town because we need that energy. We need that fearless energy that comes with making a city for younger people and looking to the future. Thank you.
All right, we're almost at the end. Closing statements will be soon, but not quite yet. We have one final question. So we'll ask Gavin first. What do you think is the most significant accomplishment of Mayor Pantelides?
I think he did a great job on snow removal last year. No, Mike, I think you're getting a lot of there's things that are getting done under your watch. I definitely give you credit for that. I don't care if it's a Democrat or Republican, as long as you're getting things done. So, and I would say the appointment of Beverly as the hacker president, I think that was a great decision because I've drunk the Kool-Aid, and when I talk to her, she talks about her need to want to fix it. And so I love that passion, and I think that she can get the job done. And so I think that was a great appointment, and I hope they keep her on there, and I hope she moves forward and she just doesn't want to do 1 year. She gets the job done. Thank you.
We'll flip it around. Mike, what do you think is Gavin's greatest contribution to the city of Annapolis?
Well, first of all, I have to say thank you. I'm glad we actually ask these questions in debates because it keeps it friendly instead of always going after each other. I think I'm going to say more than one because there's a lot of things you've done, Gavin, to help this town. I think one of the main things you did was help revitalize West Street. You know, when you look at Lemongrass, when you look at Tsunami, when you look at Metropolitan, the city of Annapolis is better because those restaurants are there. I think you have a passion and a lot of ideas. You know, dining under the stars. I remember people came to city council and said, don't vote for it. It's going to shut down traffic. And I said, look, kind of to your point, we're going to try it. If it works, it'll work. If it doesn't, it won't. So I think you bring a lot of energy and fresh ideas to the debate. And, you know, regardless of whatever happens, whoever wins, I hope we can work together.
Well, that's great. Now Gavin starts with his closing statement, and we'll follow up with Mike's.
First of all, I want to thank all of you for coming here on a Sunday. I'm glad they're providing alcohol. Makes it a little easier. So when I first came to this town, I sailed in here in a beat-up old boat with a couple $100 in my pocket. And I got a job as a waiter at Middleton's Tavern. And behind Middleton's Tavern, there was an empty shop, and it had been vacant for a year, and I pitched the first coffee shop to this town. And while I was saving my tips and throwing it into that coffee shop and fixing up the space, my girlfriend at the time, who's my wife right now, who is doing everything to make this happen. It's incredible when you have a partner that can carry the load for you while she's pretty much a single parent. She gave me a little card, and that little card was an Oscar Wilde quote, and the quote said, "Yes, I am a dreamer, for a dreamer can make his way by moonlight and see the dawn before the rest of the world." So this feels like a dream for me, to actually get a chance to run against Mike, to run for office for one of the oldest capital cities in the country. And so I feel privileged to actually even be up here. I feel like a success story from my first lawn sign, or my first bumper sticker was amazing. So what I want to do is I want to focus on three things. I want to focus on the economy, I want to focus on the environment, and I want to focus on the community. And so on the economy, I have a record to run on. We came to West Street where people didn't think anything could work. They thought you'd be out of business in a year. Why would you invest in that street? We invested in that street because it was diverse, it was different, it had some edge. And we made things happen. We made Tsunami happen. We made Metropolitan happen. We did a fashion store and gift shop. We did a lemongrass. We did a salon, Hudson Foucault. We did businesses that brought energy to that street. We drove arts agendas. We helped reinvent West Street and make it into an arts district. You've all heard me say that we've come from red light district to arts district. Well, I mean that. So West Street's come a long way, and now I want to do that for the whole city. So you know what the solution to crime is? A job. You've got to give people jobs because kids have got to have hope. And I'm a job creator, and I can take empty spaces and turn them around. I don't have all the answers, but I'll find the people that have the answers, and I'll go to the cities. I'll go to the cities and get those answers and get those ideas and look at best practices in other places and bring things back to this town and make them happen. I didn't realize there was only 3 minutes there. On the environment, we should be leading the way on green initiatives. We should be a no discharge zone in Spa Creek and Weems Creek and Back Creek. That should be a priority. It sends a message about who you are. It's our kids play in that water. We fish from that water. I'm a restaurateur. I want people to say that's delicious. It came out of the Chesapeake Bay. So we should be leading the way on green initiatives. On community, there's no secret that there's two Annapolises, the haves and the have-nots. That has to be our highest priority, to get people together, to bring people together, to make everybody feel welcome in this town. That has been West Street's success. West Street has been successful because it was inclusive. Tsunami was the first restaurant to have a gay night in this city. You can run into your parents at our restaurants, so we are age inclusive. And racially, we are the most mixed of any of the venues in the city. And so we need to work on that, and we need to bring people together. We need to build community. I'm the guy to get the job done. With your help, I'll get elected, and we'll take this town forward. The thing is, you can't get stuck in the past. We have to celebrate history, but you can't get stuck in it. So I'm going to take the town forward with new ideas. I'm going to try some new things. With your help, I'm going to reach out to you and ask you for ideas and involve those ideas. I'm going to build community where people want to volunteer for groups. Sorry. I'm going to build...
We'll give Mike an extra...
I'm going to bring the love back.
So, Mike, you have an extra minute over and above what you would have had.
Well, first of all, thank you all for coming out. I know everyone has a busy schedule, especially on a Sunday, and taking the time to get involved in local politics is so important. I want to thank Gavin for running. You know, one of the challenges we have in this city is we don't have enough people running for office. There's automatic races that have been uncontested for years. I want to share with you my vision for the future. We've talked a lot about our accomplishments over the past. We've talked about the fact that we haven't raised a tax rate in 4 years. I'd like to continue that in the future. I've talked about my open door sessions, the first Tuesday of the month. Anyone can come in and talk to me. That's where some of my best ideas come from. I want to continue that in the future. We've talked about our transportation system. How do we move people around this city? How we've improved it, but we're going to make it even better in the future through partnership. Some of the biggest legacy things I want to leave behind is on the Housing Authority. It will not get changed overnight. But if you look at the work that we've done, and it's not about you or me or the fact that they're losing money, it's about people. It's about the children living in those conditions in that neighborhood. We have to do more to make their life better. I'm committed to continue to work with them. I have regular meetings on them. I'm going to push our federal and state officials to do more for them. We're going to have a great police department in there, and we're going to give them more jobs and opportunity. We talked a little bit about the job fairs in the past. The economy is so important to people. We're going to work with our maritime industry to make sure they can find people. We're going to promote the solar energy park. That's just one thing we've done. We took an old city landfill, which was literally a pile of trash. We leased it to a private developer. We're putting up 55,000 solar panels. It's going to make the city $20 million over the next 4 years. Bold, innovative solutions taking us forward. When we talk about what else can we do to make our city better, there's a lot of things we can do. And it comes from people out here in the community working together in partnerships. I talk about the environment and getting the endorsement of the League of Conservation Voters, but I can't do it alone and they can't do it alone. It's about connecting everyone. And I'm proud to say we had our first church be green certified in the city. We had our first senior living facility get certified in there. It's going to be the residents, the business community, everybody working together to make sure we have a clean and green environment going forward. I also have a passion about technology. How can we make things better? You've heard some of it with the apps and everything else. But there's a number of things we can do. Drone technology is huge. When there was an accident on Forest Drive, on average, it took us 3 hours to clear it. Now with drones, we can clear it within an hour. They fly up, take photos, and move on. I got elected because people wanted something different. And I think that's what I've offered over the last 4 years, bold and innovative solutions working with the community. And that's what we're going to do in the future. So if you had to sum up what are the big things we're doing in the future, number one, we're going to keep making our police and fire department number one and reaching out for people. Number two, we're going to work on the environment, making sure we have the best environment, because it's not about us. None of us are going to be here 100 years. It's about our kids and the legacy we leave them. Number three, we're going to transform the Housing Authority. Anybody who knows me knows one thing. I refuse to quit and give up. Number four, we're going to work with our business community. Planning and zoning will be better, and I'm counting on all of you to help. We have a number of boards and commissions that are open, have vacancies on. Please volunteer to serve. This is my dream, to be mayor of my hometown. And every single day I wake up and I work hard to make the city better. And I got to say, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the vote of confidence people gave in me 4 years ago, and for my amazing campaign staff and family. There's a lot of people that worked hard to get me here, that helped me through the process. And to all of them and all of you, I want to say thank you and God bless.
Well, thank you all for coming out. Thank you, Mayor Pantelides. Thank you, Gavin Buckley. Thank you to the Rams Head. Please make sure you tip these servers really well. They're busting their chops for you on a Sunday morning. I want to thank Ray back there for handling our video, Teresa and Kathy for doing our timing. Certainly the 300 or so of you out here and the people that are watching on Facebook for coming out and spending part of your Sunday with us. Elections are very important, and we all need to cast the right vote for ourselves, so be informed. At both Annapolis and the Maryland Crabs, we've been all over the election. So before November 7th, go back, check them out, see the interviews that we did with all of the aldermen and all of the mayor candidates, and make sure that you vote on September 7th. It is so critically important. Finally, for some purely selfish self-promotion, make sure you do check out ionannapolis.net as well as the marylandcrabs.com. We got a lot of fun stuff going on there. Give the podcasts a listen. All the links are in your program, so make sure you take your programs home and share them with your friends. But before we go, I'd like the two candidates to come up front, in front of the table, please, and bring your cell phones. And Tim, if you could stand behind there to make sure that they're a little bit honest here. Now, we all know that music is critical to how you folks vote, right? All right, so together, I want you guys Wait. We got to get the phone from Mom. Here, let's go.
You guys look panicked, so I just want to let you know we're not checking your pictures.
Yeah, we're not going to the pictures here, okay? But music is absolutely critical there. So I want you to open up iTunes or Apple Music. Go ahead, push the button, Gavin. You're probably like one of those Android guys, aren't you? All right, scroll to your playlist. And there should be a sub-playlist said the 25 most played songs. And Buckley says his kids use his phone. A likely story.
I use Pandora mostly, not I do.
Now I'm going to bet on Tiesto for Mike.
I stream Rhapsody mostly.
Now, if Josh Cohen was here, I'd go with Katrina and the Waves. That's what that was.
Oh, I see. You went to the wrong one there.
Oh, gotcha.
Come on, Apple boy, figure it out. Playlists. Scroll down. Just go back.
Do you want me to tell you what songs I listen to?
All right. Well, we're going to go here with Gavin Buckley, and Mike will tell us his most played song. But Gavin Buckley official is Reptilla by The Strokes. Is that right? Reptilla or Reptilla?
Yeah,
something like that. And what would you say?
I got a little bit of Sweet Lita on here. I got a little bit of.
And Mike is going with local band Sweet Lita. Hey, now that's all you need to vote, but do make sure you get out on November 7th. And I do want to give a special thank you to Seth, who's back there in the booth there. I don't know whether he has any strokes back there that he can take us out with, but maybe some Reptilla.
Thrift shop.
No, I'm not going to do thrift shop. You can't change it now. I don't know. All right, take care, guys. Mr. Mayor. Gavin. And most importantly, can we have another a round of applause for Dr. Dan Nataf, who came all the way out today to take care of his...
I think Gavin won with The Strokes.
With his song. What was the other one he was talking about? Was he talking about Reptile? I wasn't paying attention.
Reptile.
Well, Mike was anxious because he kept whispering. He goes, I listen to Pandora. I listen to Spot. And he's right. I mean, a younger demographic that's my daughter and son. They don't listen. I talk about their music. They just laugh. They're like, it's on Spotify, Dad. Just so.
Although Mike did throw out that he likes Sweet Lita.
I have no idea who that is.
Oh, they're local. They're up in Pasadena. That's Julie Simek and Jamie Horrigan. They're great. They're a lot of fun.
I only recognize names that I see as local people that I've never, like the Jarflies, and I have no idea. I couldn't pick them out of a lineup.
No, if you get a chance to see Sweet Lita, do it. Definitely do it. But hey,
they asked to see my phone, and they after this, what's to see yours? And mine was Big Pun.
Yeah. You know, it was funny though.
Still not a player.
As we asked the phone, when we asked for the phones, there was just this brief moment there where they're like going, "Oh shit, pictures!" And then I think Tim's like, "No pictures." But that would be a good time if we ever do this again.
Oh, that'd be horrible.
Okay, let's go to your pictures. Scroll down. Let's see what you're taking.
I quit. I concede.
It's yours. All
right. So right now we've got all the questions spread out on our.
Not all of them. We've just got
dirty kitchen table here. These are the ones that we didn't ask, and some of them we asked before. So let's see. We had that. We asked that one. Here was an interesting one, and we couldn't read all of them because we just didn't have enough time. So we did not edit them. And this is from Karen in Ward 8. And Karen, you have fantastic handwriting. It's very pretty. This is to Mayor Pantelides. Given that you have a lot of campaign donations from developers, how do you plan to maintain your impartiality on the critical development issues facing Annapolis? Thanks, Karen, Ward 8.
I'll answer that.
For the mayor?
Yep.
Nice. That's nice.
I'll be the mayor's spokesman. I don't.
Okay, that was good. That was just to the point, clean.
Okay. Next.
All right.
Here, you can answer this one. I got one from, I'll go for Gavin.
Yeah, go for Gavin. Be fair.
And you can answer this one. People say you have too many pie-in-the-sky ideas to focus on the details of running the city. How do you respond to that? And that's from Jane in Ward 8.
Oh, I like pie. Pie's great. I like blueberry. All right, these are easy. We should run for mayor.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was Gavin. Let me give you one there. So that's Gavin, but it has a red one. Someone did not follow instructions, people.
We didn't get the instructions out. In fairness to the people.
Don't defend them. All right. Your transition, this is from Mike. Your transition team recommends an ombudsman for helping businesses get started and a time limit for permit approval. Why was this not implemented? Did they?
Because there were other initiatives that we needed to cover. I don't know, but that is a good thing. I mean, because I do remember that their transition team said that they should have an ombudsman to really permit the process. And that was a topic that came up in the debate a number of times as far as the speed of getting permits and getting in business in the city of Annapolis. Here's one for the mayor. Your campaign slogan is about protecting our quality of life. What do you feel currently is the biggest threat to our quality of life, and how will you protect against it? And that's from Hannah in Ward 1.
Protect against
who has good handwriting as well.
So quality of life. As if I'm from Ward 1, the answer I'm looking for is people parking on our streets and bars staying open late and development we don't like.
What about the rabble-rousers?
Oh, rabble-rousers, definitely. And the ne'er-do-wells. So here's one for Gavin. This one was good. How do you feel? I
don't do the accent too well.
How do you feel about the marijuana dispensary location being put on West Street? Is this what we want? What we want to be seen as you enter Annapolis? First of all, let me just say that it looks like hell when you come in from there. Anyway, that's kind of the back door into Annapolis. That is there's three entrances into Annapolis essentially. There's Route Boulevard
into Ward 1.
But there's Route Boulevard and West Street and Forest Drive. Forest Drive and West Street are just crap. Like it looks so hideous when you come in the city. There's not even a sign on either of those places saying "Welcome to Annapolis." There's a sign on Route Boulevard saying
right before you come into Ward 1.
Yeah. So why can't?
And then you've got the nice bridge with all the sailboats going into Ward 1 from Eastport.
So let's just put it that there's not a big sign on the lousy entrance on West Street that says marijuana dispensary. It's discreet, and it's right next to like two different tattoo parlors. So I don't think it's
that are not there anymore. I mean,
so you know what? Unclench and shut up. Again, I don't smoke marijuana, just so people know that. But I have no problem with it, and everyone just relax. It's let people get their glaucoma stuff or whatever. And
I mean, it's a dispensary. It's not a dealer.
I know. Yeah, it's not a guy in an overcoat.
Corner. And it's going to be a much better looking building than the Papa John's. Who I love the Papa John's, but
no, I don't.
It's going to be much better looking than the Papa John's and the tattoo parlor was. Remember, that's got the old Third Eye Comics behind it, as well as like the Auto Zone or whatever it is. So I mean, that's a real pretty shitty looking section of town.
Yeah, it's lousy.
Anyhow, but in defense of the city,
so instead of whining about the marijuana dispensary, let's talk about how to improve the entrances into this fine town.
I will say now I'm getting back on my thing, but I mean the city has worked on that. I mean you look at the first block of West Street before Rams Head was horrible, and it's moved out. I mean now you've got all the way out to Westgate Circle, which is beautiful. It's safe to walk and everything else. So I think it's getting there. It certainly is not a quick process there.
Oh, I'm going to do this one too. I'm going to go off bike paths. Do you plan? This was to Gavin, by the way. Do you plan to also provide a taxpayer-funded bill for everyone in the city who can't afford a storage facility? How about winter? What the hell, Liz? You're killing me here. What did Liz say there?
All right, so this is from
Liz
Anonymous here. No, Liz, Ward 1.
Yeah, I just said that.
Bike paths. Do you plan to also provide a taxpayer-funded bike for everyone in the city who can't afford one, and storage facilities? How about in winter and poor weather?
Okay, that's just a whiny one.
And for disabled people and for handicapped people. Liz, shut up. Have another.
Yeah, come on, Liz.
Gin and tonic.
You did not. This is not a good faith question. But let me start talking.
We just probably lost a listener.
I know. We're
just shut up and have a.
But let's talk about bike paths for a second. And I'm going to get Alex Pline all worked up on me. But then I like when he's worked up on me because then we get good podcast out of it. But the bike path thing is we have one huge bike path that's like 50,000 feet wide that goes from Hilltop to Chinkapin that I've never seen anyone use. And even if they used it, you're going to ride a bike for a block? I just don't understand the point of that. The whole thing about bike paths, I think it's a pipe dream. It's never happening. Everyone talks about it. It just never happens.
I think we can realign our roads and get some bike lanes. Certainly, and there are some. So they've got some on Bay Ridge. You've got some on Hilltop. I don't think there are any on Forest.
No, you just have that block-long bike path that I've never seen a bike on before.
Yeah. We've got a plan. And Ian Banks worked very hard on that for many, many years to do that. But
The master plan? Yeah, well.
I got one. This was for both candidates, but what's your plan for ensuring our city is presentable to residents and guests at all times, i.e. the bus stops in and out on Rowell Boulevard? Would you support a hotline to report issues with 24-hour turnaround?
That is a good question. And
that's a great answer.
That's a pet peeve of mine.
I know. That's a great answer, though. A hotline with a 24-hour turnaround time.
Yeah. Remember about 8 years ago?
Beth and Ward 2, you just answered your own question.
Yeah, Beth, you followed instructions. But remember a few years ago when they had those bus shelters that were, there's two of them on Forest Drive that were bashed out, and they were huge, and they sat there for a better part of a week. But that happened, and just trash all over Forest Drive. There's like signs that are supposed to be temporary, but they're banners, and they're up there for years at a time. I'm just talking about Forest, and West Street has its problems too. But yeah, I agree. Let's make this presentable. Everyone clean up their stuff, people.
Here's another interesting one. This is presumably to the mayor. How do you respond to criticism that once free parking options around town are rarer, I think, forcing more out-of-pocket costs for people who work around West and Main Street, especially in the service industry? And I think this is probably addressed to the parking lots that were privately owned that the service people could use off hours, sort of the hidden parking lots of Annapolis.
I don't think they could use them. They did use them. They were trespassing.
And now there's a business that's come in and is putting the meters in those lots, so private lots, so you've got to pay to use them.
Yeah, so if you own a lot on West Street, presumably this company will go, hey, we will manage this for you off hours so you can get some revenue out of it and you split it with us. And I'm assuming that's what it is.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's fair. I'm a lawyer and whatnot.
I wouldn't want someone parking in my driveway when I'm at work, when I'm not at home. I just don't. It's my private property. And I think that business owners and property owners have that same right. So I didn't get that sense of entitlement people had on Facebook where they were outraged by that, saying, oh, now they're gouging us. They weren't your parking lots to begin with.
I agree. I mean, you wouldn't park in, like I said, I would not park in your driveway.
No, I'd have you towed in a second.
To see you. However, I mean, it is an issue. I mean, the servers are not necessarily making that much money.
No, I agree. I don't want
and they are working, and the other part of the story is that they're working these crazy hours. You've got somebody that's getting off at 2, maybe 3 in the morning. If it's a manager, they may be carrying a wad of cash with them. Right. And where do they park?
Now, I would probably, if I were a business owner downtown, maybe like if I'm on West Street, I might go to one of those attorneys and go, hey, can my employees park here and I'll pay you a certain amount?
Pay you directly, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would just cut out the middleman there, and that would be a benefit to my employees that I would give them because I'm a generous guy like that, and we're talking hypothetically, so I don't have to actually do it.
Well, they say Hillman Garage was supposed to fall down 5 years ago. So if you and I run for mayor in 4 years from now, our promise would be that we're going to add an extra 2 levels to Hillman.
Yep, go straight up.
When we rebuild it, and they will be strictly for service employees to use downtown.
All right, this is here's one that someone wrote. It says, to Mike, term limits for chairman of HPC.
Ooh, somebody doesn't like Sharon Kennedy.
I don't think that's a bad idea. I have nothing against Sharon. I mean, I don't have a problem with her, but I mean, I think whenever anyone's entrenched in any position, that's not a good thing.
I think there should be term limits across the board, both for the mayor, for the council, and for the commissions. And I mean, I get that you need some more time to do things.
And I know you need continuity and all those things too.
So you turn around and you get a five-year term on the commissions and stagger the start of them. I mean, that seems to be the easiest thing. That way you get the continuity, you get somebody out, you get fresh new ideas that are in. And I think the city should do a better job of advertising and soliciting and identifying people to serve on the commissions. Kind of a funny one for Gavin. Mm-hmm. Why do you want to ruin the ambience of the city with the carnival rides? And why do you want to...
You're doing what my wife does. You're making a voice for somebody, like in an argument. Like they really talk like that.
And why do you want to eliminate the preservation of our historical buildings?
From Sharon, Ward 1?
Oh, yeah, no, that's not what's happening, but it was kind of a funny question.
You ruined everything.
Well, one more and then we'll sort of wrap it up here. But this one was for Gavin, but it says, for years, candidates have promised to get the state to pay their fair share, yet once in office, none have delivered. How will you ensure this happens? And that's from Roger in Ward 1 from Truxton Heights. And I might point out that Roger misspelled Truxton. It's a tough word. It's a U at the end of that. It's Truxton.
But if he lives there, you should know that.
Yeah, you would think so.
Which means that someone was a ringer.
I don't know.
Is that card real?
I don't know.
But that's what John was promising. John promised that he wasn't specific about it, but he said he knew how to get the money from the state. For
different programs and whatnot. I think this has to do with the taxes and the pilots and everything else that they've got going there. And I agree. I mean, we've got what sets us unique from, as the politicians like to say, is that we're so unique because we've got our own fire department and police department and bus services and all that. The one thing that does set us apart from this is that we've got so many public things, the Naval Academy, the state buildings, the county buildings, all the churches. We've got a ton of churches in town, and they're all property tax exempt.
Oh, see, I thought you were going a different way. I thought you were going that they've always said that we are a capital city and we have a lot of expenses that other cities of our size don't have to pay. And I think it's nonsense. I don't think that's true. They have their own police force.
We've got some of them, not many, but some. I mean,
I think it's a convenient cop out, to be honest. And I'm saying that without doing any research.
But I think you should see the state and the federal government should be able to kick in some more money.
I agree. Well, I always said that with the hanging baskets because the ABA for years paid for all the beautiful hanging baskets that are on West Street and Main Street and downtown Market Square. And the ABA always paid like around 50, 60 grand a year for that they raised through fundraisers and donations. And then the city would kick in maybe 10 grand. That was, and I don't know how it goes now, but I always argue that the state, as the state capital, the state should be responsible for some of that because they
certainly have an interest in it.
Absolutely. They should have been responsible for at least, 20, 30 grand of that. But no one asked me.
You would think so. But that's what I would like to see. I'd like to see a little bit more on that. Hey, next week we are going to be talking to Dr. Nataf.
Yeah. And
we saw a little bit of him, but he produces a semi-annual survey, and it's the pulse of everything that's happening in Anne Arundel County. And he is, as we're talking right now, and this is, what are we, Thursday? No, we're Monday, Tuesday? Mm-hmm. Tuesday? He's producing it right now, and it's getting ready to release early next week. So we'll have.
In fact, I think we actually put him behind with our debate.
Yeah, he did. He got some permission to delay that a little bit for the debate, but it'll be released soon, and we're going to have Dr. Dan next week to talk about it. Some of the findings that he sees, and it's going to get into any number of different issues, not just politics. Of course, that'll be there, but we're going to be talking about County Executive Shue. We'll talk about Governor Larry Hogan.
So we're getting a little bit away from Annapolis, and we promise everybody, we've been saying this, that we are going to get into more general Maryland-based interviews and topics. Matter of fact, we honestly have been very diligently reaching out. We've been getting some yeses, some maybes, some nos. I've been pursuing John Waters so hard that I think they're about to get a restraining order. But we're looking for some of the people who live here, some of the celebrities, and so we will be back into that in short order. We promise.
Absolutely. Do I believe you didn't even push the record again? Made you look.
Oh, you're nuts. I actually did. I actually just looked down.
Anyhow, so make sure that you recommend us to all of your friends. Go on to Apple Podcasts. Give us a review and a rating. We do appreciate that. Also on what's that thing called? Google Play.
Yep.
Anywhere you get your podcast.
We're on Alexa. And then, look at the Annapolis podcast. The Annapolis Pint has a podcast. And More Power to You, which is Josh Cohen's podcast.
Yep.
Follow all them, subscribe. And, again, ratings and reviews for them
Daily
too.
News
How did I forget? Yeah. The Iron Annapolis, that's John's. He does every day, and I listen to it every day. It's very useful. But then you go to our Facebook page. We have a group. We have a page. You can find us on Twitter at MD Krabs Podcast. You can find John at Iron Annapolis, Tim at Tim Hamilton 47. So you can find us everywhere.
And email us suggestions. Who do you want to see us? Who do you want to see us talk to? If you've got a person, we'll reach out to them. Even if you've just got a pie in the sky idea, we have no problem reaching out to somebody. If you know somebody and you've got a connection, make it for us.
Yeah, we have no problem with rejection. We get rejected all the time.
That's right. Tim's married.
Oh, yeah. I guess.
Thank you very much for listening.
This has been the Maryland Krabs Podcast with Tim Hamilton and John Fernay. Sure to follow them in all the regular places, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and online at themarylandkrabs.com. Take a moment to rate us on iTunes. Now, get the hell out of my kitchen. Seriously, go!
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.